beware, you're in for a scare. Beware, you're in for a scare.
Good evening, hello, I'm back after 2 weeks, I'm back. Nothing much has happened. How you been? Right then, so, Goosebumps. Yes, that's a series of books. I may have read one or two before on this channel. This one's called The Haunted Mask. It is by R.L Stine, unsurprisingly. Who would have guessed, eh? Right then, let's not fart around. Shall we just jump straight in? I think we should. How long is this one compared to other ones? It is some pages long. Just some. Not all of them, just some. Okay, let's read the blurb. Let's get a feel for it, shall we? Scare yourself silly. Carly's found the best Halloween mask ever. Yellow-green skin and long animal fangs. The mask terrifies the entire neighborhood. But before long, it's having a surprise effect on Carly too. Halloween is almost over, but Fright Night is just beginning, because when she tries to take it off, it won't budge. Neither does it become a budgie, which I feel is a missed opportunity. But hey ho, you can't have everything. Right then, let's give it a minute, see if any more people decide to swing by. I'm hoping so. It feels like I've been away forever, even though it's just been a fortnight. So, tomorrow is the 2nd year anniversary of this channel. Can you believe? I'm going to be playing Dark Souls 2 again, because that's what I played originally on this channel, and that's what I did last year for the anniversary, and now I'm doing it again because it's the 2nd year. It kind of seems like tradition to play Dark Souls 2, right? So if ever I think I'm going to do another challenge on it, I'll wait an entire year to do it again. Oh well, I don't think we're really missing out on much. Alright, we are going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 9, 8, 4, 1. Oh, fuck it, let's just start. The Haunted Mask by R.L Stine. Chapter 1. Ooh. What are you going to be for Halloween? Sabrina Mason asked. She moved her fork around in a bright yellow macaroni on her lunch tray, but didn't take a bite. Connie Beth Caldwell sighed and shook her head. The overhead light on the lunchroom ceiling made her her straight brown hair gleam. Squiffy! First! He's back. Hello, buddy. How you doing? Oh, I lost my place when it started. Straight brown hair gleam. I don't know. A witch, maybe? Sabrina's mouth dropped open. You? A witch? Hold on, you can't have Sabrina and the witch in the same sentence. This is getting dangerously close to another franchise that has Sabrina and witches in it. I think it's called WandaVision. Anyway, well, why not? Carly Beth demanded, staring across the long table at her friend. I thought you were afraid of witches. Sabrina replied, not sandwiches, frankly. She raised a forkful of macaroni to her mouth and started to chew. This macaroni is made of rubber, she complained, chewing hard. Remind me to start packing a lunch. I am not afraid of witches, Barley Beth insisted. I read that as Barley Beth. It's Cardi Beth, but I might start calling her Barley Beth because I think that's funny. We'll see how we go. Her dark eyes flashing angrily. You just think I'm a big scaredy cat, don't you? Sabrina giggled. Yes, she flicked her black ponytail behind her shoulders. You just have to imagine a ponytail. With a quick toss of her head. It said toss. Cardi B. Does she drug people to sleep as well? Is that a magic trick? Hey, don't eat the macaroni. Really, Cardi Beth. It's gross. She reached across the table to keep Cardi Beth from raising her fork. But I'm starving, Cardi Beth complained. The lunchroom grew crowded and noisy. At the next table, a group of fifth-grade boys were tossing a half-full milk carton back and forth. Cardi Beth saw Chuck Green. Chuck Green? Where do I know that name? Chuck Green. Isn't that the character from... That's the character from Dead Rising 2, right? Chuck Green? I'm sure it is. Somebody Google it. So Chuck Green pulled up a bright red fruit roll-up and shoved the whole sticky thing in his mouth. Yuck! She made a disgusted face at him. Then she turned back to Sabrina. I am not a scaredy cat, Sabrina. Just because everyone picks on me and... Cardi Beth, what about last week, remember? At my house? Chuck and Hank Green are very popular YouTubers. Yeah, there's that too. Sabrina ripped open her bag of tortilla chips and offered some across the table to her friend. You mean the ghost thing? Carly Beth replied, frowning. That was really stupid. But you believed it, Sabrina said with her mouth full of chips. Chips. You know the drill. Sabrina said with her mouth full of chips. You really believe my attic was haunted? You should have seen the look on your face. The ceiling started to creak, and you heard the footsteps up there. That was so mean, Carly Beth complained, running away. So I have to say Carly Beth every fucking time. They're trying to pad out the word count. Just put my pen down now, I can't find it. No. Alright, F in chat for pen. Then when you heard footsteps coming down the stairs, your face went all white and you screamed, Sabrina recalled. It was only Chuck and Steve. You know what, if only Stephanie Meyer, the girl who wrote Twilight, if only she lost her pen. It saved us all so much. Did you change the cover of this in the later editions? I'm guessing so. I think there's about 8,000 different covers of this. And every other Goosebumps Game Overachiever. Also, hello. Snakes and bugs and loud noises and dark rooms and witches, Sabrina declared. I don't see why you have to make fun of me, Carly Beth pouted. She shoved her lunch tray away. I don't see why everyone always thinks it's so much fun to try and scare me. Even you, my best friend. I'm sorry, Sabrina said sincerely. She reached across the table and screeched. She screeched, not squeezed. No, that's too sensible a word. She screeched by Carly Beth's wrist reassuringly. You're just so easy to scare. It's hard to resist. Here, want some more chips? She shoved the bag toward Carly Beth. Maybe I'll scare you someday, Carly Beth threatened. Her friend laughed. No way. Carly Beth continued to pout. She was 11. But she was tiny, and with her round face and short stub of a nose, which she hated and wished would look longer, she looked much younger. Sabrina, on the other hand, was tall, dark, and sophisticated looking. She had straight black hair tied behind her head in a ponytail, and enormous dark eyes. Everyone who saw them, that's a decent amount of chips going for them, together assumed that Sabrina was 12 or 13, but actually Carly Beth was a month older than her friend. We've been told. Maybe I won't be a witch, Carly Beth said, thoughtfully, resting her chin on her hands. Maybe I'll be a disgusting monster with hanging eyeballs and green slime dripping down my face, and a loud crash made Carly Beth scream. It took her a few seconds to realize that it was just a lunch tray hitting the floor. She turned to see Gabe Moser, his face bright red, drop to his knees and start scooping his lunch off the floor. The lunchroom rang out with cheers and applause. Carly Beth hunched down in her seat, embarrassed that she had screamed. Her breathing had just returned to normal when a strong hand grabbed her shoulder from behind. Carly Beth's shriek echoed through the room. Chapter 2. She heard laughter at another table. I'm going to come down a bit. There we go. That's a bit better. That's better. At another table, somebody yelled, "Way to go, Steve!" She whipped her head back and forth around to see her friend, Steve Boswell, standing behind her, a mischievous grin on his face. "Gotcha, bitch," he said, letting go of her shoulder. Steve pulled out the chair next to Carly Beth and lowered himself over his back. His best friend, Chuck Green, slammed his book back onto the table. Like that. And now I lost my place. And sat down next to Sabrina. Steve and Chuck looked so much alike they could have been brothers. Both were tall and thin, with straight brown hair, which they usually hid under baseball caps. Both had dark brown eyes and goofy grins. Both wore faded blue jeans and dark-coloured long-sleeved t-shirts. And both of them loved to scare Carly Beth. They loved to startle her and make her jump and shriek. They spent hours dreaming up new ways to frighten her. She vowed every time she would never, never fall for one of their stupid tricks again. But so far, they have won every time. Carly Beth always threatened to pay them back, but in all the time they'd been friends, she hadn't been able to think of anything good enough. Chuck reached for a few remaining chips in Sabrina's bag. She playfully slapped his hand away. "Get your own!" Steve held a crinkled hunk of aluminium foil for us. I said aluminium for American friends. So I can annoy both people. Under Carly Beth's nose. "Want a sandwich?" "I don't want it." Carly Beth sniffed it suspiciously. "What kind is it?" "I'm starving." "It's a turkey sandwich." "Here," Steve said, handing it to Carly Beth. "It's a trap. Don't do it. It's too dry. My mum forgot her mayo. You want it?" "Oh no, I'm just thinking The Simpsons. Like, the turkey's a little dry. Curse you, monkey's paw." Yes. That's a slight tangent. "Yeah, sure, thanks," Carly Beth exclaimed. She took the sandwich from him and peeled back the aluminium foil. Then she took a big bite of the sandwich. As she started to chew, she realized that both Steve and Chuck were staring at her with big grins on their faces. Something tasted funny. Kind of sticky and sour. Carly Beth stopped chewing. Chuck and Steve are laughing now. Sabrina looked confused. Carly Beth uttered a disgusted groan and spit the chewed-up sandwich hunk into a napkin. Then she pulled the bread apart and saw a big brown worm resting on top of the turkey. I was expecting worse, to be honest. I was expecting them to, probably jack off a dog into it or something. Like they did in Van Wilder. Anyway, it's almost time for an openini bait, so this better not be upsetting. Oh dear. It could have been worse. Ugh! With a moan, she covered her face with her hands. The room erupted with laughter. Ha. Cruel laughter. Huh? "I ate a worm. I'm going to be sick," Carly Beth groaned. She jumped to her feet and stared angrily at Steve. "How'd you cut you?" she demanded. "It isn't funny. It's Monty Python's Flying Circus." "It isn't a real worm," Chuck said. Steve was laughing too hard to talk. "Huh?" Carly Beth gazed down at it and felt a wave of nausea rip up from her stomach. "It isn't real. It's rubber." "Pick it up," Chuck urged. Carly Beth hesitated. Kids all through the vast room were whispering and pointing at her. And laughing. "Ha! Go ahead. It isn't real. Pick it up," Chuck urged. Carly Beth hesitated. Kids all through the vast room were whispering and pointing at her. And laughing. Still. Carly Beth reached down with 2 fingers and reluctantly picked the brown worm up for the sandwich. It felt warm and sticky. Like a stick. "Got you again," Chuck said with a laugh. "It was real. A real worm. It's Earthworm Jim." What a horrific ending. With a horrified cry, Carly Beth tossed the worm at Chuck, who was laughing wildly. Then she leapt away from the table, knocking the chair over. As the chair clattered noisily against the hard floor, Carly Beth covered her mouth with rang gagging from the lunchroom. I can still taste it, she thought. I can still taste the worm in my mouth. I'll pay them back for this, Carly Beth thought bitterly as she ran. I'll pay them back. I really will. As she pushed through the double doors and hurled towards the girl's room, the cruel laughter followed her across the hall. Chapter 3. After school, Carly Beth hurried through the halls without talking to anyone. She heard kids laughing and whispering. She knew they were laughing at her. Carly Beth was also paranoid. Word had spread all over school that Carly Beth Caldwell had eaten a worm at lunch. Carly Beth, the scaredy cat. Carly Beth, who was frightened of her own shadow. Carly Beth, who was so easy to trick. Chuck and Steve had sneaked a real worm, a fat brown worm, into a sandwich, and Carly Beth had taken a big bite. What a jerk. Carly Beth ran all the way home, 3 long blocks. Her anger grew with every step. How could they do that to me? They're supposed to be my friends. Why do you think it's so funny to scare me? She burst into her house, breathing hard. Anyone home? She called, stopping in the hallway and leaning against the banister to catch her breath. Her mother hurried out from the kitchen. Carly Beth, hi, what's wrong? I ran all the way, Carly Beth told her, pulling off her blue windbreaker. Wind. Why? Miss Caldwell asked. Just felt like it, Carly Beth replied moodily. Her mother took Carly Beth's windbreaker and hung it in the front closet for her. Then she brushed a hand affectionately through Carly Beth's soft brown hair. Where did you get the straight hair? She muttered. Her mother was always saying that. We don't look like mother and daughter at all, Carly Beth realized. Her mother was a tall, chubby woman with thick curls of coppery hair and lively grey-green eyes. She was extremely energetic, seldom stood still, and talked as rapidly as she moved. Well, if it's chonky, she probably doesn't move that rapidly, surely. So she talked quite slowly, yeah? Today she was wearing a paint-stained grey sweatshirt over black lycra tights. Why so grumpy? Miss Caldwell asked. Anything you'd care to talk about? Carly Beth shook her head. Not really. She didn't feel like telling her mother that she had become the laughingstock of Walnut Avenue Middle School. Or WAMS. WAMS for short. Come here. I have something to show you, Miss Caldwell said, tucking Carly Beth towards the living room. I'm really not in the mood, Mum, Carly Beth told her, hanging back. Come on, her mother insisted, and pulled her across the hallway. Carly Beth always found it impossible to argue with her mother. She was like a hurricane. Here I am, Carly Beth's mum. Well, yeah, that didn't quite work, did it? Sweeping everything in her direction. Look, Mrs. Caldwell declared, grinning and gesturing to the mantelpiece. Carly Beth followed her mother's gaze to the mantel and cried out in surprise. It's a head. Not just any head, Miss Caldwell said, beaming. Go on, take a closer look. Carly Beth took a few steps towards the mantelpiece, her eyes on the head staring back at her. It took her a few moments to recognize the straight brown hair, the brown eyes, the short snip of a nose, the round cheeks. It's me. It's a mask, she cried, walking up to it. Yes, life-size, Miss Caldwell declared. I just came up from my art class at the museum. I finished it today. What do you think? Carly Beth picked it up and studied it closely. It looks just like me, Mum. Really. What's it made of? Human skin, said Eggine. No, wait. Plaster of Paris, her mother replied, taking it from Carly Beth and holding it up so Carly Beth was face to face, eye to eye with herself. You have to be careful. It's delicate. Einstein, hello. How you doing? Carly Beth stared intently at the head, peering into her own eyes. It's kind of creepy, she muttered. You mean because I did such a good job? Her mother demanded. It's just creepy, that's all, Carly Beth said. She forced herself to look away from the replica of herself and saw that her mother's smile had faded. Miss Caldwell looked hurt. Don't you like it? Don't you want your mask off your face? Yeah, sure, it's really good, Mum, Carly Beth answered quickly. But, I mean, why on earth did you make it? Because I love you, Miss Cardwell replied curtly. Why else? Honestly, Carly Beth, you have the strangest reactions to things. I worked really hard on this sculpture. I thought, I'm sorry, Mum, I like it. Really, I do, Carly Beth insisted. It was just a surprise, that's all. It's great. It looks just like me. I had a bad day as well. To be fair, if I got home from school and just saw my head on a couch and somebody said they made it because they love me, I would probably call the police. But that's just me. Carly Beth took another long look at the sculpture. Her brown eyes, stared back up at her. The brown hair shimmered in the afternoon sunlight through the window. I've got to be careful when I talk about brown eye because that could go horribly wrong. It smiled at me, Carly Beth thought, her mouth dropping open. I saw it. I saw it smile. No, it had to be a trick of the light. It was plaster of Paris's head, she reminded herself. Don't go scaring yourself over nothing, Carly Beth. Haven't you made a big enough fool of yourself today? Thanks for showing it to me, Mum. Shablanc, hello. I am. How you doing? It's been a while. How you been? Yes, I'm very much looking forward to my channel anniversary tomorrow. Fuck yeah. Thanks for showing it to me, Mum, she awkwardly, pulling her eyes away. She forced a smile. 2 heads are better than 1, right? Right, Miss Caldwell agreed brightly. Incidentally, Carly Beth, your duck costume is all ready. I put it on your bed. A duck costume? Now I'm intrigued. This could go amazingly. Huh? Duck costume? You saw a duck costume at the mall, remember? Miss Caldwell carefully placed the sculpted head on the mantel. The one with all the feathers and everything. You thought it would be funny to be a duck this Halloween, so I made you a duck costume. Weekend's been great. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. Fuck yeah. I really want to know all about this duck costume. I don't care if it's scary or not. I just want to know about the duck. All right, Carly Beth said, her mind spinning. Do I really want to be a stupid duck this Halloween? Yes, you do. She thought. I'll go up and take a look at it, Mum. Thanks. Carly Beth had forgotten all about the duck costume. I don't want to be cute this Halloween, she thought as she climbed the stairs to her room. I want to be scary. Be a duck! Only another 11 hours of the weekend. Way! Let's go after prayers as positivity. I approve of that. Thank you very much. Consider it spread all over the floor and all over this duck costume. She had seen some really scary looking masks in the window of a new party store that had opened a few blocks from school. One of them, she knew, would be perfect. But now she'd have to walk around in feathers and have everyone quack at her and make fun of her. It wasn't fair. Why did her mother have to listen to every word she said? Just because Carly Beth had admired a duck costume in the store. Sorry, that made me laugh more than it should have. Didn't mean she wanted to be a stupid duck for Halloween. Carly Beth hesitated outside her bedroom. She had never been pulled closed for some reason. She never closed the door. She listened carefully. She thought she'd... Whoa! Astra with the sub! Why have my things come up twice? I don't care. Awesome. Hello, Astra. How the hell have you been? Where have you been? Oh, so hello. I've been away for a couple of weeks, so... Hi! That's good to come back to. I appreciate that. Doom Unity. Unite. I've lost my place. She listened carefully. She thought she heard someone breathing on the other side of the door. Someone. Or something. The breathing grew louder. Carly Beth pressed an ear to the door. Was it in her room? There was only one way to find out. Carly Beth pulled open the door and uttered a startled cry. I don't even want to start chapter 4 because I just read what the first word is. You've been working a lot. Yes, so have I. That's why I've not been on for a couple of weeks. But hey, here's to working all the time. We do. We do. We just do. And we win. I have to watch seriously if they show the duck. You know what? I might have to dig it out. Anyway. So yeah, I had a feeling. I'm sure Squiff does as well. I'm sure most of us do. But damn. But well done for hanging in there. And also, thanks for popping by again. Anyway, chapter 4. Everyone stay alone at work. Whack! With a hideous cry, an enormous white feathered duck its eyes wild and frenzied, leaped at Carly Beth. As she staggered backwards in astonishment, the duck knocked her over and pinned her to the hallway floor. Quack! Quack! The costume has come alive. This was Carly Beth's first frightened thought. Then she quickly realized the truth. Noah! Get off me, she demanded, trying to push the big duck off her chest. The white feathers brushed against her nose. Hey, that tickles. She sneezed. Noah, come on. Quack! This is amazing. This is my favourite book so far. I hope this continues. Noah, I mean it, she told her 8-year-old brother. What are you doing in my costume? It's supposed to be my costume. How do we get from this to World War II German submarine? I don't know. Oh, God. I've derailed my train of... It's meant to be scary, right? Although the fact of like a 6-foot duck that's coming alive and attacking you is kind of spooky, I guess. I think that's how secretly we all want to go. Just get attacked by a giant duck. I think deep down that's what we can severely hope for the most peaceful way to go. It's getting attacked by a giant Donald Duck. I was just trying it on though, said his blue eyes staring down at her through the white and yellow duck mask. Did I scare you? Not a bit, Carly Beth lied. Now get up. You're heavy. He refused to budge. Why do you always want everything that's mine? Carly Beth demanded angrily. I don't, he replied. And why do you think it's so funny to try and scare me all the time? She asked. I can't help it if you get scared every time I say boo, he replied nastily. You don't say boo to a goose, but you can say boo to a man dressed as a duck. That's the takeaway we can have from here. Quick, Alan Moore singing about ducks. Alan Moore plays the duck. No, that's Patrick Moore, isn't it? It's going to be a slow process game for this book, isn't it? Anyway, he quacked a few more times, flapping the feathery wings. Then he climbed to his feet. Can I have this costume? It's really neat. Carly Beth frowned and shook her head. You got feathers all over me. You're molting. Molting? What's that mean? Noah demanded. He pulled off his mask. His blonde hair was damp from sweat and matted against his head. It means you're going to be a bold duck, Carly Beth told him. I don't care. Can I have this costume? Noah asked, examining the mask. It fits me. Really? I don't know, Carly Beth told him. Maybe? The phone rang in the room. Get lost, okay? Go fly south for the winter or something, she said. Ooh, sick burn. And hurried to answer the phone. As she ran to her desk, she saw white feathers all over her bed. That costume will never survive till Halloween, she thought. She picked up the receiver. Hello. Hi? Sabrina? Yeah, I'm okay. Sabrina had called to remind Carly Beth that the school's science fair was tomorrow. They had to finish their project. A model of the solar system constructed with ping pong balls. I don't know how to tell you this, kids, but the solar system is not made out of ping pong balls. There's not much science in this thing. There's a haunted mass too. There is a haunted mass too. So apparently I had a quick look in the attic. All my old Goosebumps ones were still there. I might read them to my demon child. Yes, you should do that. There's no way they will scare the crap out of them. Because honestly, these aren't scary. Again, apart from maybe being attacked by a giant duck. Maybe. That's the scariest thing we've come across so far in any of these books. Anyway. Come over after dinner, Carly Beth told her. It's almost finished. We just have to paint it. My mum said she'd hope us to take it to school tomorrow. They chatted for a while. Then Carly Beth confided. I was so mad, Sabrina. At lunch today, why did Chuck and Steve think it's so funny to do things like that to me? Sabrina was silent for a moment. I guess it's because you're so scareable, Carly Beth. Scareable? You scream so easily, Sabrina said. Other people get scared, but they're more quiet about it. You know Chuck and Steve, they don't really mean to be mean. They just think it's funny. Well, I don't think it's funny at all, Carly Beth replied unhappily. Right, I saw a moonfall the other day, and that clearly showed the moon was a ping pong. Fair enough. I can't argue with that. I can't argue with logic in films. If it's in a film, then it's true. This we all know. And I'm not going to be scared about it anymore. I mean it. I'm not ever going to scream or get frightened again. Oh, I just remembered, Astro, since you just subbed, we've got a new Rossi emote. So you feel free to spank it, to spam it even. Spam that spank. And Rossi. Yes. I'm a bit out of practice with streaming, can you tell? The science projects were all set up for judging on the stage in the auditorium. Mrs. Armbruster, the principal, and Mr. Smythe, the science teacher, walked from display to display, making notes on their clipboards. Mr. Smythe is the villain. I don't care if they've not established one. He's the villain. His name is Smythe. The solar system, as designed by Carly, Beth, and Sabrina, had survived the school trip in a pretty good shape. Jupiter had a slight dent in it, which the girls had struggled unsuccessfully to straighten out. And Earth kept coming loose from its string and bouncing across the floor. So that would explain a lot, actually, if the Earth just fell off and started bouncing everywhere. That would explain a lot of fuck-ups. But both girls agreed the display looked pretty good. Maybe it wasn't impressive of Martin Goodman's project. Martin had built a computer from scratch, but Martin was a genius. And Carly Beth figured the judges didn't expect anyone else to be genius. Hang on. This 10-year-old kid just built a computer from scratch for a science fair. That seems rather fucking impressive. Are you sure that's right? That's got the other way of what our drain is. Yes. Oh man, I lost my plate. Every time I look at chat, I lose my plate, I swear. Oh no. Yeah, looking at the crowd in noisy stage, Carly Beth saw other interesting projects. Mary Sue Chong had built some kind of electronic robot arm that could pick up a cup or wave to... Hold on, this kid's building a robotic arm as well. I'm starting to think that the solar system made of ping pong balls is a bit crap compared to a kid who's built a computer and a girl who seems to have massive robotics. What are they giving these 10-year-olds, apart from worm sandwiches? And Brian Baldwin had several glass bottles filled with brown gunky stuff that he claimed was toxic waste. Okay, unless it makes someone into a supervillain, then that's not that impressive. Someone had done a chemical analysis of the town's drinking water, and someone had built a volcano that would erupt when the two judges came by. Our project is kind of boring, Sabrina whispered nervously to Connie Beth. I agree. Her eyes of the two judges were oohing and ahhing over Martin Goodman's homemade computer. I mean, it's just painted ping pong balls on strings. I like our project, Carly Beth insisted. We worked hard on it, Sabrina. I'm pretty sure you didn't work as hard as painting ping pong balls as a kid who literally built a computer. Is Martin Goodman's real name that person who makes computers and whose name I've just forgotten? Bill Gates. That one. Yes. Maybe he changed his name later down the line. I don't know. Probably not. I'm probably making this up. Let's go for this Sonic Butcher. I know, Sabrina replied fretfully, but it's still kind of boring. The volcano erupted, sending up a gusher of red liquid. The judges appeared impressed. Several kids cheered. Then several died because it turns out the volcano was real. Uh-oh, here they come, Connie Beth whispered, jamming her hands into her jean pockets. Mrs. Armbruster and Mr. Smythe, smiles plastered across their faces, were coming closer. They stopped to examine the display of light and crystals. Suddenly, Carly Beth heard an excited shout from somewhere behind her on stage. My tarantula! Hey, my tarantula got out! That sounds like it should be a euphemism for something. She recognized Steve's face and voice. Where's my tarantula? He called. Several kids uttered startled cries. Ah! Some kids laughed. I'm not going to get scared, Carly Beth told herself, swallowing hard. Every time it says tossed or swallowed or anything like that, I can't move on without saying at least one She knew she was terrified of tarantulas, but this time she was determined not to show it. My tarantula! He got away! Steve shouted over the roar of excited voices. I'm not going to get scared. I'm not going to get scared, Carly Beth repeated to herself. But then she felt something pinch the back of her leg and dig its spiny pincer into her skin, and Carly Beth uttered a shrill scream of terror that rang out through the auditorium. Time for a panini. Ooh, what are you having in your panini? We must know. Oh wow, chapter 5 is like a page. It's better be the down chapter. Chapter 5. Carly Beth screamed and knocked over the solar system. Not the actual solar system, the diorama, I hope. Oh, no, that would be a fantastic opening line for a Douglas Adams book. Carly Beth screamed and knocked over the solar system. This upset many people. She kicked her leg wildly, trying to toss off the tarantula who ping pong. There's a typo there. Ping pong ball. Look, typo. I don't know if you can see that. There's a P. There's an extra P. Ping pong ball. No, I expected better from R.L Stine. No, I didn't. Carly B twerked the solar system into the void. Only as she drugged it, of course. And then she stole its money. Don't idolize people. The ping pong ball planets bounced over the floor. She screamed again. Get it off me! Get it off! Carly Beth, stop, Sabrina pleaded. You're okay. You're okay. It took Carly Beth a long while to realize that everyone was laughing. Her heart pounding, she spun around to find Steve down on his hands and knees behind her, having been tossed off. He made a pinching motion with his thumb and finger. Got you again? He said, grinning up at her. No! Carly Beth cried. There was no tarantula, she realized. Steve had pinched her leg. The bastard. She raised her head and saw that kids all over the stage were laughing. Mrs. Armbruster and Mr. Smythe were laughing too. With a cry of anger, Carly Beth tried to kick Steve in the side, but he spun away. She missed. Help me pick up the planets, she heard Sabrina say. But Sabrina seemed far, far away. All Carly Beth could hear were the pounding of her heart and the laughter of the kids all around her. Steve had climbed to his feet. He and Chuck were side by side, grinning at her, slapping each other high fives. Immersion. Carly Beth, help me, Sabrina pleaded. But Carly Beth turned around, jumped off the stage and ran, escaping up the Carly Auditorium aisle. I'm going to pay Steve and Chuck back, she vowed angrily, her sneakers thudding loudly up the concrete aisle. I'm going to scare them. Really scare them. But how? Well, I know how. You've got a duck costume. I mean, come on. What's more terrifying than that? But what about the computer? I want to know more about the computer. What kind was it? Was it Linux? Was it Mac? Explain, book. Explain. Chapter 6. Okay, what time should I meet you? Carly Beth asked, cradling the phone between her chin and shoulder. On the other end of the line, Sabrina considered for a moment. How about 7:30? I nearly said 37. That's not a time. That's not how time works. It was Halloween. The plan was to meet at Sabrina's house, then go trick-or-treating for the entire neighborhood. The earlier, the better. We'll get more candy, Sabrina said. Did Steve call you? Yeah, he called. Carly Beth replied bitterly. Did he apologize? Yeah, he apologized, Carly Beth muttered, rolling her eyes. Big deal, I mean. He already made me look like a jerk in front of the entire school. What good is an apology? I think he felt bad, Sabrina explained. I hope he felt bad, Carly Beth explained. It was so mean. It was a dirty trick, Sabrina agreed. And then she added, but you'll have to admit it was kind of funny. I don't have to admit anything, Carly Beth snapped. Has it stopped raining? Sabrina asked, changing the subject. Carly Beth pulled back to the curtain to glance out her bedroom window. The evening sky was charcoal grey. No, it's pretty blue. Dark clouds hovered low, but the rain had stopped. The street glistened wetly under the light of the street lamp. No rain. I've got to go. See you at 7:30, Carly Beth said, speaking rapidly. Sorry. No rain. I've got to go. See you at 7:30. Hey, wait. What's your costume? Sabrina demanded. It's a surprise, Carly Beth told her, and hung up. It'll be a surprise to me too, she told herself, glancing unhappily at the feathery duck costume rolled up in the chair in the corner. Cardi Beth's plan had been to go to the new party store after school and pick out the ugliest, most disgusting, scariest mask they had. But her mother had picked her up after school and insisted that she stay home and watch Noah for a couple of hours. Beginning update, chili and cheese. Oh, I'm glad we got that information. What, no worms? Mrs. Caldwell hadn't returned home until 5:15. Now it was nearly 5:45. There was no way the party store would still be open, Cardi Beth thought, frowning at the duck costume. Quack, quack, she said miserably. How is it possible to say quack, quack miserably? It's impossible. It's a jolly sort of noise. Quack, quack. Say it sensually, I suppose. Quack, quack. Never do that on the internet ever. Take it from me. She walked to the mirror and ran a hairbrush through her hair. Maybe it's worth a try, she thought. Maybe that store stays open late on Halloween. She pulled open her top dresser drawer and took out her wallet. Did she have enough money for a good scary mask? Black quack metal. I'd listen to that. I'm sure it exists. $30. Her life savings. Oh, she's going to die of starvation. She wadded up the bills and stuffed them back into the wallet. Then, jamming the wallet into her jeans pocket, she grabbed her coat and hurried downstairs and out the front door. Shut the front door. The evening air was cold and damp. Cardi Beth struggled to zip her coat as she jogged towards the party store. The house next door had a glowing jack-o'-lantern on the front window. The house in the corner had paper skeletons strung up across the front porch. The house next to that had children strung up from the front porch because they fucking hated kids. The wind howled across through the bare trees. The branches above her head shook and rattled like bony arms. What a creepy night, Cardi Beth thought. She started running a little faster. A car rolled silently by, sending harsh white light floating across the sidewalk like a bright ghost. Glancing across the street, Cardi Beth saw the Old Carpenter Mansion looming over the dark weed-choked lawn. Not the Spencer Mansion. Hate peak. I'd proof of that. And said the ramshackle old house is haunted by people who have been murdered inside 100 years ago. Once, Cardi Beth had heard frightening howls coming from the old mansion. When she was Noah's age, Steve and Chuck and some other kids had dared go each other to go up the house and knock on the door. Cardi Beth had run home instead. She never did find out if the other kids were brave enough to do it. Now, Cardi Beth felt a chill of fear as she hurried past the old house. Is there a single Is there a single Goosebumps book that doesn't have a creepy old house in it? Because I swear, like every one I've read so far has had one in. There's a corpse in this house. There's a corpse in this house. There's a corpse in this house. Yes, indeed. Was it just a wet go left by the rain? No, it was heavy feeling in the air. A heavier darkness, the eerie orange glow of grinning pumpkins in the windows, the silent cries of ghouls and monsters waiting to float free in the night to celebrate Halloween. Trying to force all the scary thoughts from her mind, Cardi Beth turned the corner. The little party store came into view. The window was lighted, revealing 2 rows of Halloween masks staring out of the street. But was the store still open? Crossing her fingers, Cardi Beth waited for the truck to rumble past, then eagerly jostled across the street. She stopped for a second to imagine the masks in the window. There were gorilla masks, monster masks, some sort of blue-haired alien mask. Pretty good, she thought. These are pretty ugly, but they probably have even scarier ones inside. The lights were on in the store. She peered through the glass door. Then she tried turning the knob. It didn't move. She tried again. She tried pulling the door open, then she tried pushing. No way. She was too late. The store was closed. To be fair, it's a Halloween costume shop. The only things they're going to have are Harley Quinn costumes or possibly Minions. That's it. Chapter 7. Carly Beth sighed and peered in through the glass. The walls of the tiny store were covered in masks. The masks seemed to stare back at her. They're laughing at me, she thought unhappily. Laughing at me because I'm too late. Because the store is closed. and I'm going to have to be a stupid duck for Halloween. I really want this to be a dark backstory for, like, Darkwing Duck or something. He got laughed at, and that was it. He turned into the night. She gasped and took her back. It took her a moment to realize that the shadow was a man in a black suit, staring out at her, a look of surprise on his face. Are you closed? Carly Beth shouted from the glass. The man gestured that he couldn't hear her. He turned the lock and pulled the door open an inch. Can I help you? He asked curtly. He had shiny black hair, parted in the middle and slicked down on his head, and a pencil-thin black moustache. Are you open? Carly Beth asked timidly. I need a Halloween mask. It's very late, the man replied, not answering her question. He pulled the door open another few inches. We normally close at 5. I really would like to buy a mask, Carly Beth told him in the most determined voice. The man's tiny black eyes peered into hers. His expression remained blank. Come in, he said quietly. As Carly Beth stepped past him into the store, she saw that she wore a black cape. It must be a Halloween costume, she told herself. I'm sure he doesn't wear that all the time. She turned her attention to the masks on the 2 walls. What kind of mask are you looking for? The man asked, closing the door behind him. Carly Beth felt a stab of fear, and then a shot of panic. His black eyes glowed like 2 burning coals. He seemed so strange, and here she was, locked in this closed store with him. I don't know where this is going. A scary one, she stammered. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He pointed to the wall. The gorilla mask has been very popular. It has real hair. I believe it may have one left in stock. Carly Beth stared up at the gorilla mask. She didn't really want to be a gorilla. It was too ordinary. It wasn't scary enough. Do you have anything scarier? She asked. He flicked his black cape back over the shoulder of his black suit. How about that yellowish one with the pointy ears? He suggested, pointing. I believe that's some sort of Star Trek character. You mean Spock? Spock's not scary. Well, unless he's brand new in life and dressed as a gorilla and a duck, then Spock's scary. I still have a few of them, I believe. No, Carly Beth shook her head. I need something really scary. A strange smile formed under the man's thin moustache. His eyes burned into hers, as if trying to read her thoughts. Look around, he said with a sweep of his hands. Everything I have left in stock is on the walls. What can we say? I won't discourage that he can't. It actually reminds me inside in Star Trek. Yeah, he does. But you know, when I'm thinking of Halloween, the first thing that jumps to mind is like, oh fucking hell, it's dark. I really hope Spock doesn't appear. You know, Worf, I understand. You know. I lost my phone thought. Carly Beth turned her gaze to the mask. A pig mask with a long, ugly tusk and blood trickling from the snout caught her eye. Oh, she found a sore one. Pretty good, she thought, but not quite right. A hairy werewolf mask with white pointy fangs was hung beside it. Again, too ordinary, Carly Beth decided. Her eyes glanced over a green Frankenstein mask, a Freddy Krueger mask that came with Freddy's hand, complete with long silvery blades for fingers, and an E.T. mask. I do like how they've gone with like generic names and then just straight up said Freddy Krueger in this child's book. Like, kids are going to know who Freddy Krueger are. Probably they are, but it just seems, weird that they've named that one. Okay. It's just not scary enough, Carly Beth thought, starting to feel a little desperate. I need something that will really make Stephen die of fright. Like my Halloween mask is Will Shatner. Yes, it is. It's just an unpainted Will Shatner mask, isn't it? That's some facts for you now. Young lady, I'm afraid I must ask you to make your choice, the man in the cape said softly. He had moved behind a narrow counter at the front and was turning a key in the cash register. We really are closed, after all. I'm sorry, Carly Beth started. It's just that... The phone rang before she could finish explaining. Ding, 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 ding. There we go, I did the same. The man picked it up quickly and began talking in a low voice, turning his back to Carly Beth. She wandered toward the back of the store, studying the mask as she walked. She passed a black cat mask with long, ugly yellow fangs. A vampire mask with bright red blood trickling down its lips was hung next to the grinning, bold mask of Uncle Fester from the Adams family. Get that one! Get Uncle Fester! Yes, that's a winner right there. Not right, not right, not right, Carly Beth thought. You've got a duck and Uncle Fester. There's no pleasing you, Carly Beth. I don't like you anymore. She hesitated when she spotted a narrow door slightly open at the back of the store. Was there another room? Were there more masks back there? She glanced to the front. The man, hidden behind his cape, still had his back to her as he talked on the phone. Carly Beth gave the door a hesitant push to peek inside. The door creaked open. Pale orange light washed over the small, shadowy back room. Carly Beth stepped inside and gasped in amazement. Gasp. Chapter 8. 24 empty eye sockets stared blankly at Carly Beth. She gaped in horror at the distorted, deformed faces. There were masks, she realized, 2 shells of masks, but the masks were so ugly, so grotesque, so real. They made her breath catch in her throat. Carly Beth gripped the door frame, reluctant to enter the tiny black room. Staring into the dim orange light, she stood at the hideous mask. One mask had long, stringy yellow hair falling over its bulging green forehead. A hairy black rat's head poked up from the knot in the hair, the rat's eyes gleaming like 2 dark jewels. The mask beside it had a large nail stuck through an eye hole. Thick, wet-looking blood poured from the eye down the cheek. Chunks of rotting skin appeared to be falling off another mask, revealing grey bone underneath. An enormous black insect, some kind of grotesque beetle, poked out from between the green and yellow decayed teeth. Carly Beth's horror mixed with excitement. She took a step into the room. The wooden floorboards creaked noisily beneath her. Sound effects. Woo. She took another step closer to the grotesque, grinning mask. They seemed so real, so horribly real. The faces had such detail. The skin appeared to be made of flesh, not rubber or plastic. These are perfect, she thought, her heart pounding. These are just what I was looking for. They looked terrifying, just propped up on those shelves. She imagined Steve and Chuck seeing one of these masks coming at them in the dark of night. She pictured herself uttering a blood-curdling scream and leaping out from behind the tree in one of them. She imagined the horrified expressions on the boys' faces. She pictured Steve and Chuck shrieking in terror and in terror and running for their lives. Perfect. Perfect. Web, web, web. Is that Cardi B again? What a laugh that would be. What a victory. Now I want to see her in like a scary mask, not shouting as blood-curdling scream, but instead going quack. Terrifying. Her eyes settled on an ugly mask on the lower shelf. It had a bulging, bald head. Its skin was putrid yellow-green. Its enormous sunken eyes were an eerie orange and seemed to glow. It had a broad, flat nose smashed in like a skeleton's nose. Skeleton's nose doesn't have a nose, it's like a... Yes. The dark-lipped mouth gaped wide, revealing jagged animal fangs. Staring hard at the hideous mask, Carly Beth reached out in a hand towards it. Reluctantly, she touched the broad forehead. And as she touched it, the mask cried out. It cried out, hats on the spank! Hey, Flufferfoot, how you doing, my man? What hat would you like? I'll let you have a think while I march on, because I'm massively behind. Chapter 9. Ooh! Carly Beth shrieked and jerked her hand. The mask grinned at her. She probably didn't actually make that tone of ooh, but that's one I went with. Its orange eyes glowed brightly. The lips appeared to curl back over her fangs. She suddenly felt dizzy. What's going on here? As she staggered back, away from the shelves, she realized that the angry cry hadn't come from the mask. It could come from behind her. Carly Beth spun around to see the black cape store owner glaring at her from the doorway. Its dark eyes flashed. His mouth was turned down into a menacing frown. Oh, I thought... Carly Beth started, glancing back at the mask. She still felt confused. Her heart pounded loudly on her chest. I'm sorry you saw those, the man in a low, threatening voice. No, it's not how I said it. He took a step towards her, his cape brushing the doorway. We got a decision on hats, or am I just going to pull out the first one? Alright. You know what? It's been a while, so I'll tell you what. We're doing spooky, aren't we? If we're doing spooky, I may as well do the full-on spooky. There we go. Let's think of that a bit. There we are. That's too much. There we are. What's he going to do? Carly Beth wondered, uttering a horrifying gasp. Why is he coming at me like that? Where? What is he going to do to me? I'm so sorry, he repeated, his small dark eyes burning into hers. He took another step closer. Carly Beth backed away from him. Then she uttered a startled cry as she backed into the display shelves. It's too late. Pants aren't scary enough. The hideous mass jiggled and quacked. Oh, quite! I've got ducks on the brain. As if alive. What do you mean? She managed to choke out. I'm sorry you saw these because they are not for sale, the man said softly. He stepped past her and straightened one of the masks on its stand. Carly Beth breathed a loud sigh of relief. He didn't mean to scare me, she told herself. I'm scaring myself. She crossed her arms in front of her coat and tried to force her heartbeat to return to normal. She stepped to the side as the store owner continued to arrange the masks, handling them carefully, brushing their hair with one hand, tenderly dusting off the bulging, blood-covered foreheads. Not for sale? Why not? Carly Beth demanded. Her voice came out as tiny and shrill. Too scary, the man replied. He turned to smile at her. But I want a really scary one, Carly Beth told him. I want that one. I want that one. She pointed to the mask she had touched, the mask with the open mouth and its terrifying, jagged fangs. Too scary, the man repeated, pushing his cape behind his shoulder. But it's Halloween, Carly Beth protested. I have a really scary gorilla mask, the man said, motioning for Carly Beth to go back to the front room. Very scary. Looks like it's growling. I'll give you a good price on it too, since it's so late. Carly Beth shook her head, her arms crossed defiantly in front of her. Like I said before, a gorilla mask won't do. I won't scare Steve and Chuck, she said. The man's expression changed. Who? My friends, she told him. I have to have that one, she insisted. It's so scary. I'm almost afraid to touch it. It's perfect. It's too scary, the man repeated, lowering his eyes to it. He ran his hand over the green forehead. I can't take the responsibility. It's so real looking, Carly Beth gushed. Then I got a mop. They both faint. I know they will. Then I'll never try to scare me again. Young lady, the store owner started, glancing impatiently at his watch. I really must insist that you make up your mind. I am a patient man, but I saw the first 3 words of that sentence. Now I'm going to have that in my head. That, but some white ducks. Quack, 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 quack. Yeah. Please, Carly Beth begged. Please sell it to me. Here, look. She dug into her jeans pocket and pulled out the money she had bought. Young lady, $30, Carly Beth said, shoving the wadded up bills into the man's hand. I'll give you $30 for it. That's enough, isn't it? It's not a matter of money, he told her. These masks are not for sale. With an exasperated sigh, he started towards the doorway that led to the front of the stores. Please, I need it. I really need it, Carly Beth begged, chasing after him. These masks are too real, he insisted, gesturing to the shelves. I'm warning you. Please, please. He shut his eyes. You will be sorry. No, I won't. I won't. I know I won't, Carly Beth exclaimed gleefully, seeing that he was about to give in. He opened his eyes. He shook his head. She could see that he was debating with himself. With a sigh, he took the money into his coat pocket. Then he carefully lifted the mask from its shelf, straightening the pointed ears, and started to hand it to her. Thanks, she cried, eagerly snatching the mask from his hands. It's perfect. Perfect. She held the mask by the flat nose. It felt soft and surprisingly warm. Thanks again, she cried, coming to the front, the mask gripped tightly in her hand. Can I give you a bag for it? The man called after her. Not for the mask, for your face, you ugly bear. But Carly Beth was already out the store. She crossed the street and started to run towards home. The sky was black, no stars poked through. The streets still glistened wetly from the afternoon's rain. This is going to be the best trick-or-treat night ever, Carly Beth thought happily. Because this is the night I get my revenge. She couldn't wait to spring out at Steve and Chuck. She wondered what their costumes would be. They had both talked about painting their faces blue and dyeing their hair blue and being Smurfs. Really? Lame. Really lame. Yeah, I agree. Carly Beth stopped under the streetlight and held up the mask, gripping it with both hands by its pointed ears. It grinned up at her, the two crooked rows of fangs hanging over its thick, rubbery lips. Then, tucking it carefully under one arm, she ran the rest of the way home. Stopping at the bottom of the driveway, she gazed up at her house, the front windows all glowing brightly, the porch light sending white light over the lawn. I've got to try this mask on someone, she thought, eagerly. I've got to see just how good it is. Her brother's grinning face popped into her mind. Noah, of course, she cried aloud. Noah's been really asking for it. Grinning gleefully, Carly Beth hurried up the driveway, eager to make Noah her first victim. Dear. And thus began the tale of Rose West. No, wait. I'm going to have a quick sippy sip because my mouth is a bit dry. Are you enjoying the story so far? Have you all wet yourselves in terror so far? Chapter 10. Carly Beth crept silently through the front door and tossed her coat onto the entryway floor. The house felt stuffy and hot. My house feels stuffy and hot, to be honest. A sweet smell, the aroma of hot cider on the stove, greeted her. You can't give cider to a child. Mum really gets into the holiday, she thought with a smile. Filtering some Hazy Jane guava, it's been alright. Fuck you, Hazy Jane. Tiptoeing through the front hallway, holding the mask in front of her, Carly Beth listened hard. Noah, where are you? Scooby-Dooby Noah, where are you? You're going to get the shit kicked out of you. That was the prototype. The theme song. It didn't go down well with test audiences. Where are you, my little guinea pig? Noah was always bragging about how he was so much braver than Carly Beth. He was always putting bugs down her back and planting rubber snakes in her bed. Anything he could think of to make her scream. She heard footsteps above her head. Noah must be up in his room, she realised. He's probably putting on his Halloween costume. At the last minute, Noah had decided he wanted to be a cockroach. What's wrong with the duck? Why has everyone got against the duck? Honestly, kids don't know any better. Mrs. Caldwell dashed frantically all over the house, finding the materials to build pointy feelers and a hard shell for his back. Noah in a hard shell. Cockroach power. Well, the little bug is in for a surprise, Carly Beth thought evilly. She examined her mask. This should send that cockroach scampering under the sink. Ducks aren't very good. They can be, if you hooded them very hard. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs. She could hear loud music coming from Noah's room, an old heavy metal song. Ooh, I wonder what he's listening to. Gripping the mask by the rubbery neck, she raised it carefully over her head and pulled it slowly down. It was surprisingly warm inside. The mask fit tighter than Carly Beth had imagined. It had a funny smell, kind of sour, kind of old, like damp newspapers that had been left for years in an attic or garage. It was then Carly Beth realised she put a flashlight on her head. So I just made myself laugh. She slid it all the way down until she could see through the eye holes. Then she smoothed the bulging bald head over her head and tucked it down. I should have stopped in front of the mirror, she fretted. I can't see if it looks right. The mask felt very tight. Her breathing echoed noisily into the flat nose. She forced herself to ignore the sour smell that invaded her nose. She held on tightly to the banister as she crept up the stairs. It was hard to see the steps through the eye holes. She had to take the climb slowly, one step at a time. The heavy metal music ended as she stepped into the landing. She crept silently down the hall and stopped outside Noah's door. Carly Beth edged her head into the doorway and peeked into the brightly lit room. Noah was standing in front of the mirror, adjusting the 2 long cockroach feelers above his head. Noah, I'm coming for you, Carly Beth called. To her surprise, her voice came out gruff and low. It wasn't her voice at all. Huh? Stole Noah, spun around. Noah, I've got ya! Carly Beth screamed, her voice deep, raspy, evil. No! Her brother uttered a hushed cry of protest. Even under his bug makeup, Carly Beth could see him go pale. She darted into the room, her arms outstretched as if ready to grab him. No, please, he cried, his expression terrified. Who are you? How did you get in? He doesn't even recognize me, Carly Beth thought gleefully. And he's scared to death. Except he hasn't died, so not really. Was it the hideous face, the deep rumble of the voice, or both? Carly Beth didn't care. The mask was definitely a success. I've got you, she screamed, surprising herself at how scary her voice sounded from inside the mask. No, please, Noah begged. Mom! Mom! He backed towards the bed, trembling all over his feelers, quivering in fright. Mom! Help! Carly Beth burst out laughing. Their laughter came out in a low rumble. Ha! It's me, stupid, she cried. What a yellow-bellied scaredy cat. Still huddled by the bed, Noah stared hard at her. Don't you recognize my jeans, my sweater? It's me, you idiot, Carly Beth declared in a gruff voice. But your face, that mask, Noah stammered. It really scared me. He gaped at her, studying the mask. It didn't sound like you, Carly Beth, he muttered. I thought... Carly Beth tugged at the bottom of the mask, trying to lift it off. It felt hot and sticky. She was panting noisily. She tried pulling down the bottom with both hands. The mask didn't budge. She raised her hands to the pointed ears and tried lifting it off. She tugged harder. She tried pulling off the mask by the top of the head. It didn't move. Hey, it won't come off, she cried. The mask. It won't come off. Somebody stop me. This turns out to be like a precursor to the mask with Jim Carrey, and that'll be fantastic. Let's hope it goes in that direction. Chapter 11. What's going on here? Carly Beth cried, tugging at the mask with both hands. Stop it, Noah cried. His voice sounded angry, but his eyes revealed fear. Stop kidding around, Carly Beth. You're scaring me. I'm not kidding around, Carly Beth insisted in a harsh, raspy voice. I really can't get this off. Take it off. You're not funny, her brother shouted. With great effort, Carly Beth managed to slip her fingers under the neck of the mask. Then she pulled it away from her skin and lifted it off her head. Phew! The air felt so cool and sweet. She took her hair free, and she playfully tossed the mask at Noah. Good mask, her, she grinned at him. He let the mouse bounce onto the bed, and then picked it up hesitantly and examined it. Where'd you get that? He asked, poking a finger against the ugly fangs. At the new party store, she told him, wiping perspiration from her forehead. It's so hot inside it. Could I try it on? Noah asked, pushing his fingers through the eye holes. Not now. I'm late, she replied sharply. She laughed. You sure look scared. He tossed the mask back at her, frowning. I was just pretending, he said. I knew it was you. For sure, she replied, rolling her eyes. That's why you scream like a maniac. I did not scream, Noah protested. I was just putting on an act for you. Yeah, right, Carly Beth muttered. She turned and headed towards the door, rolling the mask over her hand. How'd you change your voice like that? Noah called after her. Carly Beth stood to the doorway and turned back to him. Her smile gave way to a puzzled expression. That deep voice was the scariest part, Noah said, staring at the mask in his hand. How did you do that? Testosterone. No. I don't know, Carly Beth replied thoughtfully. I really don't know. By the time she got to her room, she was grinning again. The mask had worked. It had been a wonderful success. Noah might not want to admit it, but when Carly Beth burst in on him, growling for the hideous mask, he nearly jumped out of his cockroach cell. And I do like the way it's cut off a cockroach, so it really says he nearly jumped out of his cock. Look out, Chuck and Steve, she thought gleefully. You're next. She sat down on her bed and glanced at the clock radio on her bed table. She had a few minutes until it was time to meet everyone in front of Sabrina's house. Time enough to think of the best possible way to give them the scare of their lives. I don't want them to just jump at them, Carly Beth thought, playing her fingers over the sharp fangs. That's too boring. I want to do something they'll remember, something they'll never forget. She ran her hands over the mess pointy ears. Suddenly, she had an idea. I wonder what it is. Let's find out in Chapter 12. Carly Beth pulled the old broom handle from the closet. She brushed off a thick ball of dust and examined the long wooden pole. Perfect, she thought. She checked to make sure her mother was still in the kitchen. She was sure that her mother wouldn't approve of what Carly Beth was about to do. Mrs. Caldwell still thought that Carly Beth was going to wear the duck costume. I still wanted to wear the duck costume, for fuck's sake. Tiptoeing silently in the living room, Carly Beth stepped into the mantel and pulled down the plaster of Paris head her mother had sculpted. It really does just look like me, Carly Beth thought, holding the sculpture waist high and studying it carefully. It's so lifelike. Mum is really talented. Carefully, she placed the head on the broomstick. It balanced easily. She carried it over the hallway mirror. It looks like I'm carrying my real head on the stick, Carly Beth thought, admiring it. A wide grin broke out across her face. Her eyes sparkled gleefully. Excellent. You don't want to say the word excellent and then get delivered a cup of tea. That is indeed excellent. Cheers. Tea is hot, and I've got it in my most manly cup I've got. She leaned her head on the stick against the wall and pulled on the mask even. Once again, the sour aroma rushed into her nostrils. The heat of the mask seemed to wrap around her. The mask tightened against her skin as she pulled it down. Coffee machine is boxed. Oh no! Send tea. Somebody send tea to Squiff, quick. And make yourselves one as well. Raising her eyes to the mirror, she nearly frightened herself. It's like a real face, she thought, unable to take her eyes away. My eyes seem a part of it. Doesn't look as if I'm peering out of eye holes. She moved the gruesome mouth up and down a few times. It moves like a real mouth, she realized. It doesn't look like a mask at all. It looks like a gross, deformed face, like mine. Working with both hands, she flattened the bulging forehead, smoothing it over her hair. Excellent, she replied to herself, feeling her excitement grow. Excellent. The mask is perfect, she decided. She couldn't believe the man in the party store didn't want to sell it to her. It was the scariest, realest, ugliest mask she'd ever seen. I will be the terror of Maple Avenue tonight, Carly Beth decided. That sounds like I really want this to be a Darkwing Duck origin story with the duck costume. I can picture him shouting out, I am the terror of Maple Avenue tonight. Carly Beth decided, admiring herself in the mirror. Kids will be having nightmares about me for weeks. Especially Chuck and Steve, she told herself. Boo, she muttered to herself, pleased to hear that the gruff voice had returned. I'm ready. She picked up the broomstick, carefully balanced her sculpted head on top of it, and started to the door. Her mother's voice stopped her. Carly Beth, wait up, Mrs. Caldwell called from the kitchen. I want to see how you look in that duck costume. Uh-oh, Carly Beth groaned out loud. I wasn't going to like this. That was a short chapter. Chapter 13. Carly Beth froze in the doorway. She could hear her mother's footsteps approaching in the hallway. Let me see you, dear, Mrs. Caldwell called. Did the costume fit? Maybe I should have told her about my change of plans, Carly Beth thought guiltily. I would have said something, but I didn't want to hurt Mum's feelings. Now she's in for a shock, and she's going to be really angry when she sees I've borrowed her sculpture, even though she said she made it for you. She's going to make it put it back on the mantel. She's going to ruin everything. I'm kind of in a hurry, Mum, Carly Beth called, her voice deep and raspy inside the mask. I'll see you later, okay? She pulled down the front door. I should really do a deeper voice when she's got the mask on there, shouldn't I? You can wait 1 second while I see my costume on you, her mother called. She ran the corner and came into view. I'm sunk, Carly Beth thought with a groan. I'm caught. The phone rang. The sound echoed loudly inside Carly Beth's mask. Her mother stopped and turned back to the kitchen. Oh, darn, I'd better answer that. It's probably your father calling from Chicago. She disappeared back to the kitchen. I'll have to see you later, Carly Beth. Be careful, okay? Carly Beth breathed a sigh of relief. Saved by the bell, she thought. Balancing the head on the broomstick, she hurried out the door. She closed the door behind her and jogged down the front yard. It had come a clear, cool night. A pale half-moon rose low over the bare trees. Fat brown leaves swirled around her ankles as she headed to the sidewalk. The plan was to meet Chuck and Steve in front of Sabrina's house. Carly Beth couldn't wait. Her head bobbed and bounced on the broomstick as she ran. The house in the corner had been decorated for Halloween. Orange lights rang across the top of the stoop. Two large smiling pumpkin cutouts stood beside the doorway. A cardboard skeleton had been propped up at the end of the front walk. I love Halloween, Carly Beth thought happily. She crossed the street into Sabrina's block. Another Halloween night, she had been frightened. Her friends were always playing mean tricks on her. Last year, Steve had slipped a very real-looking rubber rat into her trick-or-treat bag. What a bastard. When Carly Beth had reached into the bag, she felt something soft and hairy. She pulled out the rat and shrieked at the top of her lungs. She was so scared she peeled her candy all over the driveway. The humanity. Chuck and Steve thought it was a riot. No, it was a rat, not a riot. So did Sabrina. They always spoiled Halloween for her. They thought it was so hilarious to scare Carly Beth and make her scream. Well, this year I won't be the one screaming, she thought. This year I'll be the one making everyone else scream. She really is turning into a comic book villain, isn't she? Sabrina's house was at the end of the block. As Carly Beth hurried towards it, bare tree limbs shivered above her. The half-moon disappeared behind a heavy cloud, and the ground darkened. The head on the broom handle bounced and nearly fell off. Carly Beth slowed her pace. She glanced up at the head, shifting her grip on the broomstick. Where? The eyes and the sculpted head stared straight ahead, as if watching out. I'm getting so many words wrong today. Too many word wrongs. As if watching out for trouble. In the darkness, the head looked real. The shadows moving over as Carly Beth walked under the bare tree limbs made the eyes and mouth appear to move. Hearing the laughter, Carly Beth turned. Across the street, a group of trick-or-treaters was invading a brightly lit porch front. In the yellow porch light, Carly Beth saw a ghost, a mutant ninja turtle, not a teenage one, just a mutant one, a Freddy Krueger, another Freddy Krueger, and the princess in the pink ball gown and tinfoil crown. Now that's a sight, isn't it? A Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Freddy Krueger, and a princess walk into a pub. There's a joke there somewhere. And the bartender was like, what is this, some kind of story? That's not even a joke. I don't know. The kids were little. Two mothers watched them from the front of the driveway. Carly Beth watched them get to their candy, and then she walked the rest of the way to Sabrina's house. She climbed the front stoop, stepping into the right triangle of light from the porch light. She could hear voices inside the house. Sabrina shouting something to her mother. A TV on in the living room. Carly Beth adjusted her mask with free hand. She straightened the gaping fang mouth. Then she checked to make sure the head was balanced on the broomstick. She reached to ring Sabrina's doorbell, then stopped. Voices behind her. She turned and squinted into the darkness. Two costumed boys were approaching, shoving each other playfully on the sidewalk. Chuck and Steve! I'm just in time, Carly Beth thought happily. She leaped off the stoop and crouched behind a low evergreen shrub. Okay, guys, she thought eagerly, her heart pounding. Get ready for a scare. Reader beware, you're in for a scare, yada yada yada. Yes, we said the line. A bit more tea. Yep, still hot. Who would have thought? Right then. Chapter 14. Carly Beth peered over the top of the shrub. The two boys were halfway up the driveway. It was too dark to get a good look at their costumes. One of them wore a long overcoat and a wide-brimmed Indiana Jones fedora. She couldn't really see the other one. Carly Beth took a deep breath and prepared to leap out at them. She gripped the broomstick tightly. My whole body is trembling, she realized. The mask suddenly felt hot. as if her excitement had heated it up. Her breath rattled noisily in the flat nose. Walking slowly, playfully blocking each other with their shoulders like football linemen, the boys made their way up the driveway. One of them said something Carly Beth couldn't hear. The other one laughed loudly, a high-pitched giggle. Peering into the darkness, Carly Beth watched them until they were nearly right in front of the shrub. Okay, now, she declared silently. Raising the broomstick with staring its head on the top, she leaped out. The boys shrieked, startled. She could see their dark eyes go wide as they gaped at her mouth. A ferocious roar escaped her throat, a deep, rumbling howl that frightened even her. At the terrifying sound, both boys cried out again. One of them actually dropped to his knees on the driveway. They both stared off with their head bobbing on the broomstick. It seemed to glare down at them. Another howl escaped Carly Beth's throat. It started low, as if coming from far away, and then pierced the air, raspy and deep, like the roar of an angry creature. No! One of the boys cried. Who are you? The other cried. Leave us alone. Carly Beth heard rapid footsteps crunching over the dead leaves in the driveway. Looking up, she saw a woman in a bulky down coat running up the driveway. Hey, what are you doing? The woman demanded, her voice shrill and angry. Are you scaring my kids? Huh? Carly Beth swallowed hard. She turned her eyes back to the two frightened boys. Wait, she cried, realizing they weren't Chuck and Steve. Who didn't see that coming a mile away? What are you doing? The woman repeated breathlessly. She stepped up to the two boys and put a hand on each of their shoulders. Are you two okay? Yeah, we're okay, Mum, the one in the overcoat and fedora replied. The other boy wore white makeup and a red clown nose. She jumped out at us, he told his mother, avoiding Carly Beth's stare. She kind of scared us. The woman turned angrily to Carly Beth and shook her finger at her accusingly. Don't you have anything better to do than to scare two young boys? Why don't you pick on someone your own age? So, Carly Beth beat the shit out of her. Normally, Carly Beth would have apologized. She would have explained to the woman that she made a mistake, that she meant to scare two different boys. But hidden behind the ugly mask, still hearing the strange howl that burst so unexpectedly from her throat, she didn't feel like apologizing. She felt anger, and she wasn't sure why. Go away, she rasped, waving the broomstick menacingly. Her head, stared down at the two startled boys. What did you say? The mother demanded, her voice tight with growing courage. What did you say? I said go away, Carly Beth snarled in her voice so deep, so terrifying, that it frightened even her. The woman crossed her arms in front of the heavy downcoat. Her eyes narrowed on Carly Beth. Who are you? What is your name? She demanded. Do you live around here? Mum, let's just go, the boy with the clown face urged, tugging at her coat sleeve. Yeah, come on, his brother pleaded. Go away, I'm warning you, Carly Beth growled. The woman stood her ground, her arms tightly crossed, her eyes narrowed at Carly Beth. Just because it's Halloween doesn't give you the right. Mum, you want to get some candy? The clown pleaded, tugging his mother's sleeve harder. Come on. We're wasting the whole night, his brother complained. Carly Beth was breathing hard, her breath escaping the mask in low, noisy grunts. I sound like an animal, she thought, puzzled. What is happening to me? She could feel her anger growing. Her breathing rattled noisily in the tight mask. Her face felt burning hot. Her anger raged through her chest. Her entire body was trembling. She felt about to burst. I'm going to tear this woman apart, Carly Beth decided. Ooh, interesting. Will she go through with it? I doubt she will. It is a children's book after all, but if it goes that dark, I'm all on board. Chapter 15. I'll chew her to bits. I'll tear her skin off her bones. Furious thoughts raged through Carly Beth's mind. She tensed her muscles, crouched low, and prepared to pounce. But before she could make her move, the two boys pulled their mother away. Let's go, Mum. Yeah, let's go. She's crazy. Yeah, I'm crazy. 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 The words repeated, roaring through Carly Beth's mind. The mask grew hotter, tighter. The woman gave Carly Beth one last cold stare, and she turned and led the two boys down the driveway. Carly Beth stared after them, panting loudly, then boxering loudly, and then trunks loudly, and then back to panting. She had a strong urge to chase after them, to really scare them, but a loud cry made her stop and spin around. Sabrina stood on the front stoop, leaning on the storm door, her mouth open in a wild "oh" of surprise. "Who's there?" she cried, squinting into the darkness. Sabrina was dressed as Catwoman, with a silver and grey catsuit and a silver mask. Her black hair was pulled tightly behind her head. Her dark eyes stared intently at Carly Beth. "Don't you recognize me?" Carly Beth rasped, stepping closer. She could see the fright in Sabrina's eyes. Sabrina gripped the door handle tightly, standing half in and half out the house. "Don't you recognize me, Sabrina?" She waved her head on her broomstick, as if giving her friend a clue. Sabrina gasped and raised her head to her mouth as she noticed a head on the pole. "Carly Beth, is that you?" she stammered. Her eyes darted from the mask to the head, then back again. And then she made herself dizzy. "Ah, Sabrina," Carly Beth growled. "It's me." Sabrina continued to study her. "That mask," she finally cried. "It's excellent. Really excellent. It's so scary." "I like your cat suit," Carly Beth told her, stepping closer into the light. Sabrina's eyes were raised to the top of the broomstick. "That head. It's so real. Where did you get it?" "It's my real head," Carly Beth choked. Sabrina continued to stare at it. "Carly Beth, when I first saw it, My mum made it," Carly Beth told her, "in her art class." "I thought it was a real head," Sabrina said. She shivered. "The eyes, the way they stare at you." Carly Beth shook the broomstick, making the head nod. Sabrina studied Carly Beth's mask. "Wait till Chuck and Steve see your costume." "I can't wait," Carly Beth thought darkly. "Where are they?" she demanded, glancing back at the street. "Steve called," Sabrina replied. "He said they'd be late. He has to take his little sister trick-or-treating before they can meet us." Carly Beth sighed, disappointed. "We'll start without them," Sabrina suggested. "Then they can catch up to us later." "Yeah, okay," Carly Beth replied. "I'll get my coat and we can go," Sabrina said. She took one last lingering look at the head on the broomstick. Then the storm door slammed shut with a bang as she disappeared inside to get her coat. Bang. The wind picked up as the two girls made their way down the block. Dead leaves swirled at their feet. The bare trees bent and shivered. Above the dark, sloping roofs, the pale half moon slipped in and out of the clouds. Sabrina chatted, all about the problems he'd had with her costume. The first catsuit she bought had been on a long run in one leg and had to be returned. And Sabrina couldn't find a cat-eyed mask that looked right. Carly Beth remained quiet. She couldn't hide her disappointment that Chuck and Steve hadn't met them as planned. What if they never catch up to us? She wondered. What if we don't see them at all? The whole point of the night, as far as Carly Beth was concerned, was meeting the two boys and scaring the living daylights out of them. You're going to scare a James Bond film out of them? Okay. Sabrina had given up her shopping bag to put her candy in. As they walked, Carly Beth gripped the bag in one hand, struggling to keep the head balanced on the pole in her other hand. "So where did you buy your mask? Your mother didn't make it, did she? Did you go to that new party store? Can I touch it?" Sabrina always talked a lot, but tonight she was going for the world record of non-stop chatter. And clattering, if my reading's anything to go by. Carly Beth obediently stopped so that her friend could touch the mask. Sabrina pressed her fingers against the cheek, and instantly jerked them back. "Ugh, it feels like skin." Carly Beth laughed, a scornful laugh she had never heard before. "What's it made of?" Sabrina demanded. "It isn't skin, is it? It's some kind of rubber, right?" "I guess," Carly Beth muttered. "Then how come it's so warm?" Sabrina asked. "Is it uncomfortable to wear? You must be sweating like a pig." Feeling an urge of rage, Carly Beth dropped the bag and the broomstick. "Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!" she snarled. Then, with an angry growl, she grabbed Sabrina's throat with both hands and began to choke her. 20 years later, she came out of prison. Okay. Whew. It's a bit warm in here. How's everyone at home doing? Chapter 16. Sabrina uttered a shocked cry and staggered back, pulling herself from Carly Beth's grip. Carly Beth, she sputtered. What is happening to me? Carly Beth wondered, gaping in horror at her friend. Why did I do that? Gotcha, Carly Beth explained. She laughed. You should have seen the look on your face, Sabrina. Did you think I was really joking you? Sabrina rubbed her neck with one silver gloved hand. She frowned at her friend. That was a joke? You scared me to death. Carly Beth laughed again. Just keeping in character, she said lightly, pointing at her mask. You know, trying to get in the right mood. Ha ha, I like scaring people, you know. Usually I'm the one who's trembling in fright. She picked up the bag and broomstick, fixing the plaster of Paris head on the top. Then she hurried to the nearest driveway towards a well-lit house with a Happy Halloween banner in the front window. Does Sabrina believe it was just a joke? Carly Beth asked herself as she raised her shopping bag and rang the doorbell. What on earth was I doing? Why did I suddenly get so angry? Why did I attack my best friend like that? Sabrina stepped up beside her as the front door was pulled open. Two little blonde kids, a boy and a girl, appeared in the doorway. Their mothers stepped up behind them. Trick or treat, Carly Beth and Sabrina called out in unison. Oh, that's a scary mask, the woman said to her two children, grinning at Carly Beth. What are you supposed to be? A cat? The little boy asked Sabrina, in the same voice as the mother. Sabrina meowed at him. Meow. And Catwoman, she told him. I don't like the other one, the little girl explained to her mother. It's too scary. It's just a funny mask, the mother assured her daughter. Too scary. It's scaring me, the little girl insisted. Carly Beth leaned into the entryway of the house, bringing her grotesque face up to the little girl. I'll eat you up, she growled nastily. The little girl screamed and disappeared into the house. Her brother stared wide-eyed at Carly Beth. The mother quickly dropped candy bars into the girl's bags. You shouldn't have scared her, she said softly. She has nightmares. Instead of apologizing, Carly Beth turned to the little boy. I'll eat you up too, she snarled. Hey, stop, the woman protested. Carly Beth laughed a deep-throated laugh, jumped off the porch and took off across the front lawn. Why did you do that? Sabrina asked as they made their way across the street. Why did you scare the kids like that? Because fuck 'em, that's why. No, it doesn't say that. The mask made me do it, Carly Beth replied. She meant it as a joke, but the thought troubled her mind. At the next few houses, Carly Beth hung up and let Sabrina do the talking. At one house, a middle-aged man in a torn blue sweater pretended to be scared of Carly Beth's mask. His wife insisted that the girls come inside so that it could show their elderly mother the great costumes. Carly Beth groaned loudly but followed Sabrina into the house. The old woman gazed at them blankly from their wheelchair. Carly Beth growled at her, but it didn't appear to make any impression. On their way out the door, the man in the torn sweater handed each girl a green apple. Carly Beth waited to her down the sidewalk. She then turned, pulled back her arm, and heaved the apple at the man's house with all her might. It made a lonk. It made a lonk. It made a loud thunk as it smacked against the shingle front wall near the front door. I really hate getting apples on Halloween, Carly Beth declared, especially green ones. All right, you racist. Carly Beth, I'm worried about you, Sabrina cried, eyeing her friend with concern. You're not acting like you at all. No, I'm not a pitiful, frightened little mouse tonight, Carly Beth thought bitterly. Give me that, she ordered Sabrina, and grabbed Sabrina's apple from her bag. Hey, stop, Sabrina protested. But Carly Beth arched her arm and tossed Sabrina's apple at the house. It clanged noisily as it hit the aluminium gutter. The man in the torn sweater poked his head out the door. Hey, what's the big idea? Run! Carly Beth screamed. The two girls took off, running at full speed down the block. They didn't stop until the house was out of sight. Hold on, I thought you said you weren't going to be a scared mouse, and now you're saying you're going to run from a guy in a torn shirt. Okay then. Sabrina grabbed Carly Beth's shoulders and held on, struggling to catch her breath. You're crazy, she gasped. You're really crazy. Takes one to know one, Carly Beth said playfully. They both laughed. Carly Beth searched the block looking for Chuck and Steve. She saw a small group of costumed kids huddled together at the corner, but no sign of the two boys. Smaller houses, jammed closer together, lined the two sides of the block. Let's split up, Carly Beth suggested, in a normal voice, leaning against the broomstick. We'll get more candy that way. Sabrina frowned at her friend, eyeing her suspiciously. Carly Beth, you don't even like candy, she exclaimed. What kid doesn't like candy? She is a weirdo. But Carly Beth was already running up the driveway to the first house. She squatted her head bobbling wildly above her on its own broomstick. This is my night, Carly Beth thought, accepting a candy bar from the smiling woman who answered the door. My night. She felt a tingle of excitement she never felt before, and a strange feeling she couldn't describe. Hunger. A few minutes later, her shopping bag started to feel heavy. She came to the end of the block. She hesitated on the corner, trying to decide whether to do the next other side of the street or to go on to the next block. It was very dark there, she realized. The moon had once again disappeared behind dark clouds. The corner streetlight was out, probably burned out. Across the street, 4 very young trick-or-treaters were giggling as they approached the house with a jack-o'-lantern on the porch. Carly Beth sank back into the darkness. She heard voices. Boys' voices. Chuck and Steve? No. The voices were unfamiliar. They were arguing about where to go trick-or-treat next. One of them wanted to go home and call a friend. How about a little scare for you guys, Carly Beth thought, a smile spreading across her face. How about something to remember this Halloween night? She waited, listening, until they were a few feet away from her. She could see them now. 2 mummies, their faces wrapped in gauze. Closer, closer. She waited for the perfect moment. Then she burst from the shadows, uttering an angry animal howl that shattered the air. The 2 boys gasped and jumped back. Hey! One of them tried to shout, but his voice caught in his throat. The other one dropped his bag of candy. As he started to pick it up, Carly Beth moved quickly. She grabbed the bag from his hand, jerked it away from him, and started to run. Come back! That's mine! Hey! Her voices were high and shrill, filled with fear and surprise. Our 2 main surprises, fear and surprise. As she ran across the street, Carly Beth glanced back to see if they were following her. No, they were too frightened. They stood huddled together on the corner, shouting after her, holding the stolen candy bag tightly in her free hand. Carly Beth tossed her back her head and laughed. A cruel laugh. A triumphant laugh. A laugh she had never heard before. She emptied the boy's candy into her own bag and tossed his bag onto the ground. She felt good, really strong, and ready for more fun. Come on, Chuck and Steve, she thought. It's your turn next. Does she think like every boy is just Chuck and Steve? That seems to be the way it's going. Alright, we are over halfway in this book now, as of now. Yay! So I'm going to have a quick sippy. Are you all enjoying the tale so far? Has everyone shat their pants? Or is it just not scary? They're not very scary, are they? I'm still holding out for hope on this duck costume making a resurgence. We can but hope. Chapter 17. Carly Beth found Chuck and Steve a few minutes later. They were across the street from her, standing in the light of someone's driveway, examining the contents of their trick-or-treat bags. Carly Beth ducked behind the wide trunk of an old tree near the sidewalk. Her heart began to pound as she spied on them. Neither boy had bothered to put on a real costume. Chuck had a red bandana tied across his head and a black mask over his eyes. Steve had blackened his cheeks and forehead with big smudges and wore an old tennis hat and a torn raincoat. Is he supposed to be a bum? Carly Beth wondered. She watched them sift through their bags. They had been out for quite a while, she saw. Their bags appeared pretty full. Suddenly, Steve glanced up in their direction. Carly Beth jerked her head back towards the tree trunk. Had he seen her? No. Don't blow it now, she told herself. You've waited so long for this moment. You've waited long to pay them back for all their scares. Carly Beth watched the 2 boys make their way up the front porch of the next house. Nearly tripping over the broomstick, she darted away from the tree. She ran across the street and ducked low behind a hedge. When they come back down the driveway, I'll leap out. I'll pounce on them. I'll scare them to death, she thought. The low hedge smelled piney and sweet. It was still wet from the morning's rain. The wind made the leaves tremble. What was that strange whistling sound? It took Carly Beth a while to realise it was her own breathing. She suddenly began to have doubts. This isn't going to work, she thought, crouching lower behind the trembling hedge. I am a complete jerk. Chuck and Steve aren't really going to be scared by a stupid mask. I'm going to jump out at them, and they're going to laugh at me, as they always do. They're going to laugh and say, "Oh, hi, Carly Beth, looking good," or something like that. And then they'll tell everyone in school how I thought it was so scary and how they recognise me immediately, and what a total jerk I am. And everyone will have a good laugh at my expense. Why did I ever think this would work? What made me think it was such a hot idea? Crouched behind the hedge, Carly Beth could feel her anger grow. Anger at herself, anger at the two boys. Her face felt burning hot inside the ugly mask. Her heart thudded loudly. Her rapid breaths whistled against the flat nose, panting like a dog for some reason. Chuck and Steve were approaching. She could hear her sneakers? And Snickers, probably. Fuck it, why not? Hear her sneakers crunch over the gravel of the driveway. Carly Beth tensed her leg muscles and prepared to pounce. Okay, she thought, taking a deep breath. Here goes. It all seemed to happen in slow motion. The two boys moved slowly past the hedge. They were talking excitedly to each other, but to Carly Beth, their voices seemed low and far away. She pulled herself up, stepped out from the hedge, and screamed at the top of her lungs. Even in the dim light, she could see their reactions clearly. Their eyes went wide, their mouths dropped open, their irons shot up above their heads. And now I can't read. And I've lost my place. Steve cried out. Chuck grabbed the sleeve of Steve's coat. Carly Beth screamed echoed over the dark front lawn. The sound seemed to hover in the air, like it just don't care. Everything had moved so slowly, so slowly. Carly Beth could see Chuck's eyebrows quiver. She could see his chin tremble. She could see the fear shimmer in Steve's eyes as they moved from her mask up on the head on the broomstick. She waved the broomstick menacingly. Is it possible to wave a broomstick menacingly? Steve uttered a frightened whimper. Chuck gaped at Carly Beth, his frightened eyes locked on hers. Carly Beth, is that you? He finally managed to choke out. Carly Beth uttered an animal growl, but didn't reply. Who are you? Steve demanded, his voice trembling. It's Carly Beth, I think, Chuck told him. Is that you in there, Carly Beth? Steve let out a tense laugh. You scared us. Carly Beth, is it you? Chuck demanded again. Carly Beth waved the broomstick. She pointed up to the head. That's Carly Beth's head, she told them. Her voice was a dark, throaty rasp. Huh? Both boys gazed up at it uncertainly. That's Carly Beth's head, she repeated slowly, waving it towards them. The painted eyes of the sculpted face appeared to glare down at them. And Koska, hello, how you doing? Oh, I've lost my place. The painted eyes of the pointed face appeared to glare down at them. Poor Carly Beth didn't want to give up her head tonight, but I took it anyway. Both boys stared up at the head. Chuck continued to grip Steve's coat sleeve. Steve uttered another tense laugh. He stared at Carly Beth, his expression confused. You're Carly Beth, right? How are you making that weird voice? That's your friend Carly Beth, she growled, pointing up to the head of the broomstick. That's all that's left of her. Chuck swallowed hard. His eyes were trained at the bobbing head. Steve stared intently at Carly Beth's mask. Handing over your candy, Carly Beth snarled, surprised by the vicious tone in her voice. That didn't really come across as vicious. Steve cried. Hand it over, now, or I'll put your head on the stick. The both boys laughed, shrill giggles. I'm not joking, Carly Beth roared. Her angry words cut their laughter short. Carly Beth, give us a break, Chuck muttered uncertainly. His eyes still narrowed in fear. Yeah, really, Steve said softly. Hand over your bags, Carly Beth insisted coldly, or your heads will adorn my stick. That's not really a frightening phrase, is it? She lowered the broomstick towards them menacingly. You can't wield a broomstick menacingly, we've been over this. As she lowered it, all three of them stared at the dark-eyed face. All three of them studied the frozen face, the face that looked so real, that looked so much like Carly Beth Caldwell. A sudden breeze swirled around them, making the head bob on the stick. And then, all three of them saw the eyes blink. Once. Twice. The brown eyes blinked, and the lips and the head parted, making a dry, scraping sound. Frozen in horror, Carly Beth stared up at the face along with the two boys, and all three of them saw the lips move and heard the dry, crackling sound. All three of them saw the dark lips squeeze together, then part. All three of them saw the bobbing head form the silent words. Help me. Help me. Kill me. Chapter 19. In her horror, Carly Beth let go of the broomstick. It hit the ground beside Chuck. The head rolled under the hedge. It talked, Steve cried. Chuck uttered a low whimper. Without another word, both boys dropped their candy bags and took off, the sneakers thudding loudly on the sidewalk. The wind swirled around Carly Beth as it held in its place. She felt her tossing her head back and howling. She felt like tearing off her coat and flying through the night. She felt like climbing a tree, leaping onto a roof, roaring at the starless black sky. She stood frozen for a long moment, letting the wind sweep behind her. The boys were gone. They had fled in terror. Terror! I did indeed say wind. Well done for paying attention. all the things she's describing, she sounds like a werewolf. She wants to roar and leap around onto walls. She's a werewolf, isn't she? Carly Beth had succeeded. She had scared them nearly to death. She knew she'd never forget the horrified looks on their faces, the fear and disbelief that glowed in their dark eyes. And she would never forget the feeling of triumph, the thrilling sweetness of revenge. For a brief moment, she realized she had felt the fear too. There should be more werewolf games. Yes, there should. And there should be more ducks too. There's still a lack of ducks. Honestly. She had imagined that the head on the stick had come to life, had blinked its eyes, had spoken silently to them. For a brief moment, she had caught the fear. She had fallen under the spell of her own trickery. But of course, the head hadn't come alive, she assured herself now. Of course the lips hadn't moved. She hadn't made their silent plea. Help me! Help me! It had to be shadows, she knew. Yes, because shadows make noises and cry for help all the time, don't they? She knew. Shadows cast by the light of the moon, floating out from behind the shifting black clouds. Where was the head? Where was the broomstick she had dropped? It didn't matter now. They were no longer of any use to her. Carly Beth had won her victory. And now she was running wildly over the front lawns, jumping over shrubs and hedges, leaping from tree to tree. I never wanted to be a lumberjack anyway. Flying over the dark, hard ground. She was running blindly. The house is whirring past both sides. The blustery wind swelled, and she swirled with it, rising over the sidewalks, rushing through tall weeds, blowing with the wind. Said wind again, like a helpless leaf. Holding her bulging sack, she run past the startled trick-or-treaters, past glowing pumpkins, past rattling skeletons. She ran until her breath gave out. When she stopped, panting loudly, then nickering loudly, she shut her eyes, waiting for her heart to stop pounding, for the blood to stop pulsing at her temples, and a hand grabbed her shoulder roughly from behind. Is it Sabrina? Startled, Carly Beth shrieked and spun around. Sabrina! She cried breathlessly. Grinning, Sabrina let go of her shoulder. I've been looking for you for hours, Sabrina scolded. Where did you go? I got lost, I guess, Carly Beth replied, still struggling to catch her breath. 1 minute you were there, the next minute you disappeared, Sabrina said, adjusting her mask over her dark hair. How'd you do? Carly Beth asked, trying to speak her normal voice. I ripped my catsuit, Sabrina complained, frowning. She pulled at the lycra material on one leg to show Carly Beth, snagged it on a stupid nail box. Bad news, Carly Beth sympathized. Did you scare anyone with the mask? Sabrina demanded, still fingering the tear in the catsuit leg. Was it? Oh, close. Nearly went to Savile territory then. Yeah, a few kids, Carly Beth replied casually. It's really gross, Sabrina said. That's why I picked it. They both laughed. Ha. Did you get a lot of candy? Sabrina asked. She picked up Carly Beth's bag and looked inside. Wow, what a haul. I hit a lot of houses, Carly Beth said. And then I went for trick-or-treating. My hands hurt. Let's go back to my house and check out the loot, Sabrina suggested. Yeah, okay, Carly Beth followed her friend across the street. Unless you want to trick-or-treat some more, Sabrina offered, stopping in the middle of the street. Nah, I've done enough, Carly Beth said. She laughed to herself. I did everything I wanted to do tonight. They started walking again. They were walking against the wind, but Carly Beth didn't feel at all chilled. Two girls in frilly dresses, their faces brightly made up, funny, blonde, mop-like wigs on their heads, ran by. One of them slowed when she caught sight of Carly Beth's mess. She uttered a soft gasp and hurried after her friend. Did you see Steve and Chuck? Sabrina asked. I searched everywhere for them, she groaned. That's all I did tonight. I spent the whole night looking for everybody. You, Steve, and Chuck. How come we never got together? Carly Beth shrugged. I saw them, she told her friend. A few minutes ago back there. She motioned with her head. They're such scaredy cats. Huh? Steve and Chuck? Sabrina's expression turned to surprise. Yeah, they got one good look at my mask and they took off, Carly Beth told her, laughing. They were screaming like babies. Sabrina joined in the laughter. I don't believe it, she exclaimed, turning to Victor Meldrew. They always act so tough, and I called after them, but they just kept running, Carly Beth told her, grinning. Weird, Sabrina declared. Yeah, weird, Carly Beth agreed. Did they know it was you? Sabrina asked. Carly Beth shrugged. I don't know. They took one look at me, and they ran like rabbits. They told me that you planned to scare you, Sabrina revealed. They were going to sneak up behind you and make scary noises or something. Carly Beth snickered. It's hard to sneak up with someone when you're running for your life. Sabrina's house came into view. Carly Beth shifted the candy bag to her hand. I got some good stuff, Sabrina said, peering into her bag as she walked. I had to get a lot. I had to share with my cousin. She has the flu and couldn't trick-or-treat tonight. I'm not sharing any of mine, Carly Beth said. No, I went out with his pals. I'll probably come home with a year's supply. Mrs. Connolly gave cookies and popcorn again this year, Sabrina said, sighing. I'll just have to throw it all out. What? You're going to throw away cookies and popcorn? You mental? Mum won't let me eat anything that isn't wrapped. She's afraid some ghoul will put poison in it. Oh, I really hope it goes in this direction. That'll bring a sudden end to it. And then they all got poisoned to death. Thus ends the tale of the haunted mask. Sabrina locked the front door. A few seconds later, her mother opened it and the girls entered. That's some mask, Carly Beth, she said, studying it. How'd you girls do? Okay, I think, Sabrina replied. Well, just remember. I know, Mum, Sabrina interrupted impatiently. Throw out everything that isn't wrapped, even the fruit. As soon as Mrs. Mason had gone back to the den, the two girls turned over their bags and dumped all the candy into the living room rug. Put it on the rug, you fools. Put it on the side. Put it in a bowl. Hey, look, a big Milky Way, Sabrina declared, pulling it out of the pile. My favourite. I fucking love Milky Ways. I want a Milky Way. Curse you, book. My favourite. I hate these, Carly Beth, holding up an enormous blue jawbreaker. The last time I was looking on one of these, I cut my tongue into pieces. This is my last resort. She tossed it into Sabrina's pile. Thanks a bunch, Sabrina says sarcastically. She tugged off her mask and dropped it onto the carpet. Her face was flushed. She stuck out her black hair. There, that feels better, Sabrina said. Wow, that mask was hot. Laser cans! For 100 biddies! Thank you, my man. Spanky's back. He is. He is. I thought I'd come back in style by reading one of these books. And no, I don't know why my alert's coming up twice, but I'm not complaining. I appreciate that, buddy. Thanks very much, man. If you're around tomorrow, Lazy, it's the 2-year anniversary of the channel. I shall be doing Dark Souls 2, doing a pacifist run from 12 PM. I nearly said AM. I ain't doing that, really. Christ. Yes, 12 PM. I'll be going from that until I've either finished the game or I rage quit. One or the other. So, it's going to be an all day. I've lost my bias. No, I appreciate it, bits, man. Thank you. Yeah, good idea. Carly Beth actually had forgotten she was wearing a mask. She reached out with both hands and tugged at her ears. Ow, the mask didn't budge. She pulled at it by the top of her head. Then she tries stretching it out and tugging from the cheeks. Ouch! What's wrong? Sabrina asked, concentrating on sorting her candy into piles. Carly Beth didn't reply. She tried prying the mask off at the neck. Then she tugged it up by the ears again. Carly Beth, what's wrong? Sabrina asked, looking up from her candy. Help me! Carly Beth pleaded in a shrill, frightened voice. Please, help me! The mask! It won't come off! Finish work at work, we'll be here then. What's on my stream tomorrow? 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock GMT. 12 o'clock UK time. Yay. And then till fuck knows when. So, I thought I'd do that instead of like 2 streams like I normally do. Just do an all day one. So, yay! It's your favourite game, Squiff. The brown one. Oh, everyone, by the way, if you don't already follow Lazy Game Stream, he's an excellent chap. And his internet's working, and he streams. And he's a good egg. So, chuck him a bit. Look, he gave me bits. He's clearly a good man. Chapter 21. On her knees on the carpet. Don't know where this is going. Sabrina glanced up from her piles of candy bars. Carly Beth, stop clowning around. I'm not, Carly Beth insisted, her voice shrill with panic. Aren't you tired of scaring people tonight? Sabrina demanded. She picked up a clear plastic bag of candy corn. Wonder if Mum will let me keep this. It's wrapped. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm serious, Carly Beth cried. She tugged up the ears of her mask, but she couldn't get a good grip. Sabrina tossed to her down the bag of candy corn and climbed up to her feet. You really can't get the mask off. Carly Beth pulled hard on the chin. Ouch, she cried out in pain. It's stuck to my skin or something. Help me. Sabrina laughed. We're all going to look pretty stupid if we have to call the fire department to get you out of your mask. Carly Beth didn't find it funny. She gripped the top of her mask with both hands and pulled with all her strength. The mask didn't budge. Sabrina's grin faded. She stepped over her friend. You're not goofing, are you? You're really stuck. Carly Beth nodded. Well, come on, she urged impatiently. Help me pull it off. Sabrina grabbed the mask top. It's so warm, she exclaimed. You must be suffocating in there. Just pull, Carly Beth wailed. Sabrina pulled. Ouch! Not so hard, Carly Beth cried. It really hurts. Yeah, I think we all know a few people who've been in that situation. Anyway, moving on. Sabrina pulled more gently, but the mask didn't budge. She lowered her hands to the cheeks and pulled. Ouch! Carly Beth screamed. It's really stuck to my face. What's this thing made of? Sabrina asked, staring intently at the mask. It doesn't feel like rubber. It feels like skin. I don't know what it's made of, and I don't care, Carly Beth grumbled. I just want it off. Maybe you should cut it off, with scissors. And wreck the mask? Sabrina asked. I don't care, Carly Beth exclaimed, tugging furious on it. I really don't. I just want out. If I don't get this thing off me, I'm going to lose it. I'm serious. I'm super serious, you guys. Sabrina put a calming hand on her friend's shoulder. Okay. One more try. Then we'll cut it off. She narrowed her eyes as she examined the mask. I should be able to reach underneath and pull it away, she said, thinking out loud. If I slip my hands up through the neck, I can stretch it out and push it up. Well, go ahead. Just hurry, Carly Beth pleaded. But Sabrina didn't move. Her dark eyes grew wide. Her mouth dropped open and she studied the mask. She uttered a soft gasp of surprise. This kid masked by Slayer Intense. You're not the only one thinking that. Sabrina, what's the matter? Carly Beth demanded. Sabrina didn't reply. Instead, she ran her fingers over Carly Beth's throat. Her astonished expression remained frozen on her face. She moved behind Carly Beth and ran her fingers along the back of Carly Beth's neck. What is it? What's the matter? Carly Beth demanded shrilly. Sabrina ran her hand back through her black hair. Her forehead wrinkled in concentration. Carly Beth, she said finally, there's something very weird going on here. What are you talking about? Carly Beth demanded. There's no bottom to the mask. Huh? Carly Beth's hands shot up to her neck. She felt around frantically. What do you mean? There's no line, Sabrina told her in a trembling voice. There's no line between the mask and your skin. No place to slip my hand in. But that's crazy, Carly Beth cried. She moved her hands to her throat, pushing up the skin, feeling for the bottom of the mask. That's crazy. Just crazy. Sabrina raised her hands to her face, features tight with horror. That's crazy, Carly Beth repeated in a high-pitched, frightening voice. But as her trembling fingers desperately explored her neck, Carly Beth realized that her friend was right. There was no longer a bottom to the mask. No place where the mask ended. No opening between the mask and Carly Beth's skin. The mask had become her face. See, I mentioned wind earlier. I bet she pulled an expression in the wind and it stayed that way. You know, like that old wives' tale. People say you shouldn't do. If you pull faces like that and the wind change, it will stay that way. What a load of bollocks that was. Mind you, that said, I do have this face and stuck with it, so maybe there is some truth to that. Let's take a moment to ponder on that while I have a quick sip of tea. Lovely. Chapter 22. Carly Beth's legs trembled as she made her way to the... This is kind of written like a porno at the minute, and I'm not liking it because it's got 2 kids in it, but I keep going on. Oh, never mind. Let's not dwell on it. Her hand still frantically searched her throat as she stepped up to the large rectangular wall mirror and brought her face close to the glass. No line, she cried. No mask line. Sabrina stood a few feet back, her expression troubled. I don't understand it, she muttered, staring at Carly Beth's reflection. Carly Beth uttered a sharp gasp. Those aren't my eyes, she screamed. Huh? Sabrina stepped up beside her, still staring into the mirror. Those aren't my eyes, Carly Beth wailed. My eyes don't look like that. Try to calm down, Sabrina urged softly. Your eyes. I bet love story in Twilight, yeah. Oddly enough, from what I understand, this bit in the Goosebumps TV series is like one of the best scenes in the entire series, because this bit is genuinely like scary, like the way it's acted. Isn't it? From what I'm told on the internet, so. But I haven't seen it for myself. They're not mine, not mine, Carly Beth cried, ignoring her friend's plea for calm. Where are my eyes? Where am I? Where am I? Sabrina, this isn't me in here. Carly Beth, please calm down, Sabrina urged, but her voice came out choked and frightened. It isn't me, Carly Beth declared, gaping open mouth horror at her reflection, her hands pressed tightly against the grotesquely wrinkled cheeks of the mask. It isn't me. Sabrina pulled out and reached for her friend, but Carly Beth pulled away. With a high-pitched wail, a cry of horror and despair, she flung herself through the hallway. She pulled open the front door, struggling with the lock, sobbing loudly. Carly Beth, stop! Come back! Ignoring Sabrina's pleas, Carly Beth plunged back into the darkness. The storm door slammed behind her, and she began to run. She could hear Sabrina's frantic cries in the doorway. Carly Beth, your coat! Come back! You forgot your coat! To take her face off. Oh, Carly Beth is now played by Nicolas Cage, which I guess makes Sabrina John Travolta. I can't do a Nicolas Cage impression, which is a shame. Carly Beth's sneakers thundered onto the hard ground. She ran into the darkness beneath the trees as if trying to hide, as if trying to keep her hideous face from view. She reached the sidewalk, turned right, and kept running. She had no idea where she was going. She only knew she had to run away from Sabrina, away from the mirror. She wanted to run away from herself, away from her face, the hideous face that had stared back at her in the mirror with those frightening, unfamiliar eyes. Oh, you seen the Nick? I was just thinking that. I haven't seen it yet. I need to see Pig as well, and it's delightful. Good, I've heard good things. Oh, Sonic, let's go. I'm gonna go watch Nick Cage. No, okay, no, let's finish the book. I've started, so I'll finish. Someone else's eyes in her head, and it was no longer her head. It was an ugly green monster head that had attached itself to hers. Uttering another cry of panic, Carly Beth crossed the street and kept running. The dark trees, black against the starless night sky, swayed and shivered overhead. Houses whirred past, a blur of orange light from their windows. In the darkness she ran. Breathing noisily through the ugly flat nose, she lowered her smooth green head against the wind and stared at the ground as she ran. But no matter where she turned her gaze, she saw the mask. She saw the face staring back at her, the ugly puckered skin, the glowing orange eyes, the rows of jagged animal teeth. My face! My face! High-pitched screams startled her from her thoughts. Carly Beth glanced up to see she had run into a group of trick-or-treaters. There were 6 or 7 of them, all turned towards her, screaming and pointing. She opened her mouth wide, revealing the sharp fangs, and growled at them. A deep animal growl. The growl made them grow silent. They stared hard at her, trying to decide if it was threatening them or only kidding. What are you supposed to be? A girl in a red and white ruffled clown costume called to her. I'm supposed to be me, but I'm not, Carly Beth thought bitterly. She ignored the question, lowering her head, turning away from them. She started to run again. She could hear the laughing now. They were laughing in relief. She knew, glad she was leaving them. With a bitter sob, she turned the corner and kept running. Where am I going? What am I doing? Where do we go? Where do we go now? Am I going to keep running forever? The questions roared through her mind. Where did we come from? Where do we go? She stopped short when the party store came into view. Of course, she thought, the party store. The strange man in the cape, he will help me. He will know what to do. The man in the cape will know how to get this mask off. Feeling a surge of hope, Carly Beth jogged towards the store. But as she neared it, her hope dimmed as dark as the story. Come on, me, get through this. Her hope dimmed as dark as the store window. Through the glass, she could see that all the lights were out. The store was as dark as the night. It was closed. Burr, burr, burr. Well, what the fuck did you expect? It's nighttime. Chapter 23. As she stared into the darkened store, a wave of despair swept over Carly Beth. Her hands raised against the window, she pressed her head against the glass. It felt cool against her hot forehead. The hot forehead. She closed her eyes. What do I do now? What am I going to do? It's all a bad dream, she murmured out loud. A bad dream. I'm going to open my eyes now and wake up. She opened her eyes. She could see her eyes, her glowing orange eyes, reflected in the dark window glass. She could see her grotesque face staring darkly back at her. No! With a shudder that shook her entire body, Carly Beth slammed her fist against the window. Why didn't I wear my mother's duck costume? Isn't that the question we're all asking ourselves? Why didn't I wear my mother's duck costume? I know that's the question this stream's been asking. She asked herself angrily. Why was I so determined to be the scariest creature that ever roamed on Halloween? Why was I so determined to terrify Chuck and Steve? She swallowed hard. Now I'm going to scare people for the rest of my life. Yeah, you know what? It's not that bad a living, I've got to say. As bitter thoughts rolled through her mind, Carly Beth suddenly became aware of movement inside the store. She saw a dark shadow roll over the floor. She heard footsteps. The door rattled, then opened a few inches. The store owner poked his head out. His eyes narrowed as they studied Carly Beth. I stayed late, he said quietly. I expected to see you again. Carly Beth was startled by his calmness. I can't get it off, she sputtered. Maybe we should see a psychiatrist about that. She tugged at the top of her head to demonstrate. I know, the man said. His expression didn't change. Come inside. He pushed the door open the rest of the way and stepped back. Carly Beth hesitated, then walked quickly into the dark store. It was very warm inside. The owner turned on a single light above the front counter. He was no longer wearing the cape Carly Beth saw. He wore black suit pants and a white dress shirt. I knew you'd come back, Carly Beth demanded shrilly, in the shopkeeper's voice. The raspy voice, quiet inside the mask, revealed both anger and confusion. How did you know? I didn't want to sell it to you, he replied, staring at the mask. He shook his head, frowning. You remember, don't you? I remember I didn't want to sell it to you. But I did anyway, because I'm a complete bastard. I remember, Carly Beth replied impatiently. Just help me to take it off, okay? Help me. He stared hard at her. He didn't reply. Help me take it off, Carly Beth insisted, shouting. I want you to take it off. He sighed. I can't, he said to her sadly. I can't take it off. I'm really sorry. They'll put me on a list if I do. Tension's mounting. Ooh. Chapter 24. What do you mean? Carly Beth stammered. The store owner didn't reply. He turned towards the back of the store and motioned for her to follow him. Answer me, Carly Beth shrieked. Don't walk away. Answer me. What do you mean the mask can't be taken off? She followed him into the back room, her heart pounding. He clicked on the light. Carly Beth blinked in the sudden brightness. The two long shelves of hideous masks came into focus. She saw a bare spot on the shelf where her voice had stood. The grotesque masks all seemed to stare at her. She forced herself to look away from them. Take this mask off now, she demanded, moving to block the store owner's path. I can't remove it, he repeated softly, almost sadly. Why not? Carly Beth demanded. He lowered his voice. Because it isn't a mask. Carly Beth gaped at him. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. It isn't a mask, he told her. It's a real face. Carly Beth suddenly felt dizzy. The floor tilted. The rows of ugly faces glared at her. All the bulging, bloodshot yellow and green eyes seemed to be trained on her. She pressed her back against the wall and tried to steady herself. The store owner walked over to the display shelf and gestured to the ugly staring heads. Dear and loved, he said sadly, his face lowered to a whisper. I don't understand, Carly Beth managed to choke out. These are not masks, they are faces, he explained. Real faces. I made them. I created them in my lab. Real faces. But why are they so ugly? Carly Beth started. Why? They weren't ugly in the beginning, he interrupted, his voice bitter, his eyes angry. They were beautiful, and they were alive. But something went wrong. When they were taken out of the lab, they changed. My experiments, my poor heads, were a failure. But I had to keep them alive. I had to. I don't believe it, Carly Beth explained, once again turning to Victor Mildred, which was actually another mask there, believe it or not. Raising her hands to the sides of her face, her green distorted face. I don't believe any of it. I am telling the truth, the store owner continued, running a finger over one side of his narrow moustache, his eyes burning into Carly Beth's. I keep them here. I call them the unloved because no one will ever want to see them. Occasionally, someone wanders into the back room, you, for example, and one of my faces finds a new home. That's why I only wear free-range organic farms to do. Yeah, fair enough. Man. No! Carly Beth uttered a cry of protest. More an animal wail than a human cry. She stared at the gnarled, twisted faces on the shelf, the bulging heads, the open wounds, the animal fangs. Monsters. Oh, monsters. Take this off, she screamed, losing control. Take this off! Take it off! She began tearing frantically at her face, trying to pull it off, trying to rip it off in pieces. Take it off! Take it off! Take the face off. She raised a hand to quiet her. I am sorry, the face is your face now, he said, without expression. No! Carly Beth shrieked again in her new raspy voice. Take it off now! Do it now! She tore at her face, but even in her anger and panic, she knew her actions were useless. The face can be removed, the store owner told her, speaking softly. Huh? Carly Beth lowered her hands. She stared at him. What did you say? I said there is one way the face can be removed. Yes, Carly Beth felt a powerful chill run down the back. A chill of hope. Yes, how? Tell me, she pleaded. Please, tell me. I cannot do it for you, he replied, frowning. But I can tell you how. However, if it ever again attaches itself to you or another person, it will be forever. How do I get it off? Tell me, Carly Beth begged. How do I get it off? Chapter 25. The light flickered overhead. The rows of bloated, distorted faces continued to stare at Carly Beth. Monsters, she thought. It's a room full of monsters waiting to come alive, and now I'm one of them. Now I'm a monster too. The floorboards creaked as the store owner moved away from the display shelves and came up close to Carly Beth. How did I get this off me? She pleaded. Tell me, show me now. It can only be removed once, he repeated, softly, and it can only be removed by a symbol of love. Oh, don't say the power of love, that's wanky. She stared at him, waiting for him to continue. The silence filled the room, heavy silence. I don't understand, Carly Beth stammered finally. You've got to help me. I don't understand. Tell me something that makes sense. Help me. I can say no more, he said, lowering his head, shutting his eyes, and wearily wibbling his eyelids with his fingers. But what do you mean by a symbol of love? Carly Beth demanded. Well, you see, there's a thing called a bad dragon. Carly Beth cut him off. She grabbed the front of his shirt with both hands. What do you mean? What do you mean? He made no attempt to remove her hands. I can say no more, he repeated in a whisper. No, she shouted. No, you have to help me. You have to. She could feel her rage explode. He could feel herself burst out of control, but she couldn't stop herself. I want my face back, she shrieked, pounding on his chest with both fists. I want my face back. I want myself back. She was screaming at the top of her lungs now, but she didn't care. The store owner backed away, motioning with both hands for her to be quiet. Then suddenly his eyes opened wide in fear. Carly Beth followed his gaze to the display shelves. Oh, she uttered a startled cry of horror as she saw the rows of faces all begin to move. Bulging eyes blinked. Swollen tongues lit at dry lips. Dark wounds began to pulsate. Their heads were all bobbing, blinking, breathing. What is happening? Carly Beth cried in with trembling whisper. You've awakened them all, he cried, his expression as frightened as hers. But, run, he screamed, giving her a hard shove towards the doorway. Run! Run, bitch! Run! Carly Beth hesitated. She turned back to stare at the heads bobbing on the shelves. Fat dark lips began to move, making wet sucking sounds. That's either made this more terrifying or less terrifying. Decide amongst yourselves. Quickly fangs clicked up and down. Ugly inhuman noses twitched and gasped air noisily. The heads, 2 long rows of them, throbbed to life. And the eyes, the blood-veined, bulging eyes, the green eyes, the sicky yellow eyes, the bright scarlet eyes, the disgusting eyeballs hanging by threads, they were all on her. Run! You've awakened them, the store owner screamed, his voice choked with fear. Run! Get away from here! Carly Beth wanted to run, but her legs couldn't cooperate. Her knees felt wobbly and weak. She suddenly felt as if she weighed 1,000 pounds. Run! Run! The store owner repeated his frantic cry. But she couldn't take her eyes off the throbbing, twitching heads. Carly Beth gaped at the hideous scene, frozen in terror, feeling her legs turn to jello, feeling her breath catch in her throat. And as she watched, the heads rose up and floated in the air. Run! Hurry! Run! The store owner's voice seemed far away now. The heads began to jabber in rumbling, deep voices, drowning out his frantic cries. They murmured it excitedly, making only sounds, no words, like a chorus of frogs. Oh, don't start singing Frog Chorus by Paul McCartney. Up they floated, as Carly Beth stared in silent horror. Run! Run! Yes. She turned. She forced her legs to move, and with a burst of energy, she began to run. She ran through the dimly lit front room of the store. Her hands grabbed for the doorknob, and she pulled open the door. A second later, she was out on the sidewalk, running through the darkness. Her sneakers thudded loudly on the pavement. She felt a shock of cold air against her hot face. A hot green face. Her monster face. The monster face she could not remove. She crossed the street and kept running. What was that sound? A deep, gurgling sound. That low murmur that seemed to following her. Following her? Oh no! Carly Beth cried out as she glanced back and saw the gruesome hands flying after her. A ghoulish parade. They flew in a single file, one long chin of throbbing, jabbering hands. Their eyes glowed brightly, as bright as car headlights, and they were all trained on Carly Beth. Choked with fear, Carly Beth stumbled across the curb. Her arms shot forward as she struggled to regain her balance. Her legs wanted to collapse, but she forced them to move again. Bent into the wind, she ran past dark houses and empty lots. It must be late, she realized. It must be very late. Too late. The words flashed into her mind. Too late for me. The hideous growing heads flew after her, getting closer. Closer. The rumbling of her animal murmurs grew louder in her ears until the frightening sound seemed to surround her. The wind roared, gusting hard, as if deliberately pushing her back. Oh, I hate it when you get gusting on. Augusta. The murmuring heads floated closer. I'm running through a dark nightmare, she thought. I may run forever. Too late for me. Or was it? An idea formed its way through her nightmarish panic. As she ran, her arms thrashing the air in front of her as if reaching for safety, her mind struggled for a solution, an escape, a symbol of love. She heard the story and his words over the rumble of ugly voices behind her. A symbol of love. That's what it would take to rid her of the monster's head that had become her own. Would it also be able to stop the throbbing, glowing heads that pursued her? Would it send the faces of the unloved back to where they came from? Gasping loudly for breath, Carly Beth turned the corner and kept running. Glancing back, she could see her chattering pursuers turn too. Where am I? She wondered, turning her eyes to the houses as she was passing. She had been too frightened to care where she ran, but now Carly Beth had an idea, a desperate idea. And she had to get there before the gruesome parade of heads caught up with her. She had a symbol of love. It was her head. A plaster of Paris head her mother had sculpted of her. Carly Beth remembered asking her mother why she had sculpted it, and her mother had replied, Because I love ya. Maybe it could save her. Maybe it could help her out of this nightmare. But where was it? She had tossed it aside. She had let it fall behind a hedge. She had left it in someone's yard. And now she was back on the block. Hey, Nose! How you doing? You well? She had tossed it aside. She had left it. No. Read that bit. She recognised the street. She had recognised the houses. This is where she had met up with Chuck and Steve. This is where she had sent them running off in terror. But where was the house? Where was the hedge? Her eyes darted frantically from yard to yard. Behind her, she saw the heads had swarmed together. Like buzzing bees, they had bunched together, grinning now. Grinning hideous, wet grins as they prepared to close in on her. I've got to find the head, Carly Beth told herself, struggling to breathe, struggling to keep her aching eggs moving. I've got to find my head. The rumbling, jabbering voices grew louder. The heads swarmed closer. Where? Where? She screamed aloud. Then she saw the tall hedge across the street. The yard across the street. The head, the beautiful head. She had let it fall behind the hedge. My ugly heads bring all the boys to the yard? No, that doesn't sound right. But she get to it before the ugly head swarmed over her. Yes. Sucking in a deep breath of air, her arms reaching out desperately in front of her. She turned and ran across the street. A dove behind the hedge. And dove into the hedge. No, it wasn't a dove in the hedge. What was this? A John Woo film? A dove behind the hedge, onto her hands and knees, her chest heaving, her breath rasping, her head pounding. She reached for the head. It was gone. Alright. Oh, we've not got long left of this book, guys. Karambit. Karambit's a good nice. I like its curve pointiness. Chapter 27 of 29. Let's go. Gone. The head was gone. My last chance, Carly Beth thought, searching blindly, her hand thrashing frantically through the bottom of the hedge. Gone. Too late for me. Still on her knees, she turned to face her ghoulish pursuers. The heads, jabbering their mindless sounds, rose up in front of her, forming a wall. Jabbering their mindless sounds. That sounds like pretty much one of my streams. Carly Beth started to her feet. The throbbing wall of monster heads inched closer. That's gotta be the name of a porno, surely. The throbbing wall of monster heads. Rob Zombie, get on it. She turned, searching for an escape route, and saw it. Saw her head. Saw the plaster of Paris head staring up at her from between two upraised roots of the big tree near the driveway. The wind must have blown it over there, she realized. And as the ugly heads bobbed closer, she dove for the tree and grabbed the head with both hands. With a cry of triumph, oh, she turned the sculpted face towards the jabbering heads and raised it high. Go away! Go away! Carly Beth screamed. The plaster of Paris head compels you. Holding the head up so they could all see it. This is a symbol of love. This is a symbol of love. Go away! The heads bobbed together. Their glowing eyes stared at the sculpted head. They murmured excitedly. Wet smiles formed on their distorted lips. Go away! Go away! Carly Beth heard them laugh, low, scornful laughter. And they moved quickly, surrounding her. eager to swallow her up. Chapter 28. Too late for me, the words repeated in Carly Beth's mind. Her idea had failed. The head swarmed around her, drooled over her, eyes bulging gleefully in triumph. Their rumbling murmurs became a roar. She felt herself being swallowed up in their foul-smelling heat. Without thinking, she lowered the sculpted head and pulled it down hard over the hideous monster head. To her surprise, it slid over her like a mask. I'm wearing my own face, like a mask, she thought bitterly. As she pulled it over her, darkness descended. There were no eye holes. She couldn't see out. She couldn't hear. What will the gruesome heads do to me, she wondered, alone with her fear. Will I become one of the unloved now? Will I end up on display on a shelf among them? Surrounded by the tight, silent darkness, Carly Beth waited. And waited. She could feel the blood pulsing at her temples. She could feel the throb of fear in her chest, the ache of her dry throat. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? She couldn't bear being alone, shut with her face, surrounded by silence and the dark. With a hard tug, she pulled off the sculpted head. The gruesome heads were gone, vanished. Carly Beth stared straight out in disbelief. Then her eyes darted around the shadowy lawn. She searched the trees and shrubs. She squinted into the dark places between the houses. Gone. They were gone. For a long moment, Carly Beth sat in the cold, wet grass, sculpted head in her lap, breathing hard, staring across the silent, empty front yards. Soon, her breathing returned to normal. She climbed to her feet. The wind had gentled. The pale half-moon slipped out from behind the dark clouds that had covered it. Carly Beth felt something flap against her throat. Startled, she reached up and felt the bottom of the mask. The bottom of the mask? Yes! There was a gap between the mask and her neck. Hey! She cried aloud, setting up the sculpted head down gently at her feet. She raised both hands to the bottom of the mask and pulled it up. The mask came off easily. Stunned, she lowered it and held it in front of her. She folded it up, then unfolded it. The orange eyes that had glowed like fire had faded. The pointed animal fangs had become rubbery and limp. You're just a mask, she cried aloud. Just a mask again. Laughing gleefully, she tossed it up in the air and caught it. It can be removed only once, the store owner had told her, even though she's removed it at least once before. Continuity would be damned. Only once by a symbol of love. Well, I've done it, Carly Beth told herself happily. I've removed it, and don't worry, it'll never happen again. Never. She suddenly felt exhausted. I've got to get home, she told herself. It's probably close to midnight. Most of the houses were dark. There were no cars moving on the streets. The trick-or-treaters had all gone home. Carly Beth bent to pick up the sculpted head. Then, carrying the mask and the plaster head, she began quickly walking towards her house. Halfway up the driveway, she stopped. She reached up and examined her face with one hand. Do I have my old face back, she wondered. She rubbed her cheeks, then ran her fingers over her nose. Is it my old face? Do I look like me? She could have just told just by looking. I've got to get a mirror, she explained out loud. Desperate to see if her face had returned to normal, she ran up the front door and rang the bell. After a few seconds, the door swung open and Noah appeared. She pushed open the storm door. Then he raised his eyes to her face and started to scream. Take that mask off! Take it off! You're so ugly! Drew Denko in. It's the last chapter, folks. I'm gonna guess that her little brother's gonna put on the mask. It's gotta be in it. What else could it be? Let's find out in the final chapter. Chapter 29. No, Carly Beth cried in horror. The mask must have changed her face when she realised. No, oh no! She pushed past her brother, tossed down the head and the mask, and ran to the hallway mirror. Her face stared back at her. Perfectly normal. Her old face. Her good old face. Her dark brown eyes. Her broad forehead. Snip of a nose, which she'd always wished was longer. I'll never complain about my nose again, she thought happily. Her face was normal again. All normal. As she stared at herself, she could hear Noah laughing at the doorway. She spun around angrily. Noah, how could you? He laughed harder. It was just a joke. Can't believe you fell for it. It was no joke to me, Carly Beth explained angrily. Her mother appeared at the end of the hall. Carly Beth, where have you been? I expected you back an hour ago. Sorry, Mum, Carly Beth replied, grinning. I'm so happy I may never stop grinning, she thought. It's sort of a long story, she told her mother. Sort of a long, weird story. But you're okay, Mrs. Caldwell's eyes narrowed as she studied her daughter. Yeah, I'm okay, Carly Beth said. Come into the kitchen, Mrs. Caldwell instructed her. I have some nice hot cider for you. You can't give a child cider, you monster. Who's the real monster? Carly Beth obediently followed her mother to the kitchen. The kitchen was warm and bright. The sweet cider aroma filled the room. Carly Beth had never been so glad to be home in all her life. She hugged her mother and took a seat at the counter. Why didn't you wear the duck costume? Yeah, why didn't you wear the duck costume? Mrs. Caldwell asked, pouring out a cup of steaming cider. Where have you been? Why weren't you with Miss Sabrina? Sabrina has called twice already, wondering what happened to you. Well, Carly Beth began. It's sort of a long story, Mum. This is it. The final paragraph, everyone. Brace yourselves. I'm not going anywhere, her mother said, setting the cup of cider down in front of Carly Beth. She leaned against the counter, resting her chin in one hand. Go ahead. Talk. Well, Carly Beth hesitated. Everything is fine now, Mum. Perfectly fine, but... Before she could say another word, Noah burst into the room. Hey, Carly Beth, he called in for a deep, raspy voice. Look at me. How do I look? In your mask. The end. Called it. Tet Ned. That's it. It's the haunted mask. Done. Done, 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 and done. I'm surprised no one redeemed mask for the entire stream. Because it was on about a mask. Oh, I've got one ready on standby. Ooh, scary. But then you could argue my face is already terrifying. So yes, that was The Haunted Mask by R.L Stine. How do I rate this one? It was better than most of them. I want to know, what happened to the kid who built the computer? What was his story? That was way more interesting. I wanted to know what happened to that kid. And also, you can't tease us with a duck costume and then not wear it. There should have been more duck costumes in it. By far should have been more duck costumes. I mean, it was crying out for it. I mean, it's like Chekhov's duck costume. Yeah, you don't introduce it and then not have it pay off. But oh well. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that. That was very, very dumb. It's good to be back. It's good to be back after 2 weeks. It feels like I've been away for absolutely forever. But, okay, so tomorrow, 12 o'clock, so in like 13 and a half hours, I will be doing a very long stream. I am going to be going to do Dark Souls 2 in its entirety, doing a mostly pacifist run. I say mostly because I still need to kill bosses, and after doing a practice run, there are 4 points where I absolutely have to kill enemies. So the idea of a pacifist run is I'm not allowed to kill any regular enemies like, at all. There's only 4 points where you have to. It's absolutely mandatory. There's no way you can progress otherwise. But apart from that, it will be no regular enemies. So which means basically I can't grind. I can't grind for items. I can't grind for experience. So, and I just can't fight back. So I'm gonna get gangbanged a lot. So look forward to that. But I feel it's 2-year channel anniversary. So I did Dark Souls 2 when I first streamed, doing shield only. Last year I did Dark Souls 2 with only a broken sword. So why not have no weapons apart from bosses? Why not do that? I do have a plan. But yes, I get slightly off topic. So I hope to see you then. If you can stop by, that'd be great. I've got the schedule up now. So I'll be doing later on this week. I'll be doing Final Fantasy Remake. I'll be carrying on with that. Going retro, I'll be doing Shining Force 2, which I did do a year and a half ago. I started doing Shining Force 2, but I never actually finished it. But now I've got a catch card and everything is much, much better. So I feel my stream is better. It's still me, I'm afraid, but technology-wise, the stream's got better. It's still me. It'd be fun to go back and look at my old streams and compare like how it's evolved over like 2 years and how much worse it's getting. You're going to stream this week myself? Oh, excellent. Well, there you go, folks. If you don't already follow Squiffy, go on, give my mate a follow. What are you going to be streaming, Squiff? Let the good people know while I look for someone to raid. I have fun tonight. Wow, I've got a massive 2 choices. This is options. Thank you, my man. I appreciate that. Well, let me lower your expectations tomorrow, shall we? No, I appreciate that. But a big shout out to Astro again for the sub today. That was amazing. Again, go and follow Astronomer. She is brilliant. New tune Star Trek. Oh, okay. I shall have a look at that. Star Trek Online. Interesting choice, although not surprising, seeing as I know you. Brown Souls 2. This town is brown. Ooh, that's the wrong button. Alright, let's see who we're going to raid over to. Right, I've got a choice of... we're going to go over to friend of the channel, Ari Barrel, who is playing Valheim, which is a game that exists. So we're going to go say hi to her. I haven't popped into anyone's stream for a couple of weeks since I've literally been away from Twitch. So, yeah, I've been too busy. But we are going to go over to her. So, say hi to Ari Babel for me. Superman Sinful Pleasures. Yes, so am I. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you've had a good night. It's good to be back. I've had a blast. Where did... Use Unraid? I didn't use Unraid. Raid, please. Start raid. I didn't say Unraid. Stupid thing. Right, I will catch you guys later. Look after yourselves. And remember, if you have any haunted mask, don't put them on your face unless you've got a plaster of Paris mask made out of love. It's just common knowledge. See you later.